Now, I am here with the guys from History Dose. Um, Actually, we're not live. We are
Oh, are
live
we
now.
not? It says
No, we're
live
live
on
now.
the
It
thing.
We're
says,
live
says
now.
uploading
Live
for
now.
me. I don't know if that's...
I think we're live now. So yeah, I'm here with the
Okay.
guys from History Dose, one of the premier history channels on YouTube.
I like that.
You guys, you make some awesome stuff, and I love that. Joe, you're the artist. Chris, you're the historian, and you combine your skills together. Joe with his amazing digital art, Chris with his amazing research and scripts, and you make something pretty special, I would say.
Yeah. It's like a left brain, right brain type of thing. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
you each
I'm
brother has
not
got
as well
different
versed in
skills.
history. Chris can't. Well, Chris can make a stick man, just not a very good stick man. So,
Yeah, nice. And yeah, of course, you are siblings as well, which is cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're the other history brothers. I make history content with my brother David. You guys make yours together.
Do you
And,
actually work with David?
So we work together on History of the Earth, which is
Okay.
our kind of natural history paleontology channel, which doesn't release that often, but when it does release, we try to go for quality over quantity at the moment. That's what we're trying to
I
do.
gotta say, you're making me feel incredibly insecure about my own background here. You have like relics of every ancient civilization. You got the golden play button.
We've
Got
got
like
the,
a
I haven't got
piss
the,
yellow wall.
That's the
and a
I mean,
silver
I have
door.
a few dozen books behind me. Makes me
that's
look
the silver
smart.
one.
I've read
We've
10 of them. So,
We've got the Lord of Sipan up there. We've got sort of
Oh,
generic Japanese mountain.
That's a little teaser.
It is, yes, it is a little teaser. And then we've got, of course, the Mask of Agamemnon. And I'm literally moving my computer monitor right now, so I think that's as far as it'll go.
are you using like the
Perfect.
little inbuilt camera?
I've got the inbuilt
Very
camera at the
good,
moment, yeah.
Yeah. So
So-
guys, if you haven't checked out our channel, please do that after the stream.
Yeah, subscribe to
we-
History Dose, everybody.
I don't know. I'd say we try to take almost like a narrative approach and just make it really accessible for everybody. Any civilization that we're covering, or a little vignette in history, and then we put in so much work onto. Joe makes everything manually, every piece of art manually. I've written the script for the 7 years of the channel now, and fully footnoted scripts are in the bottom of the description with a bibliography. So it's lots of fun.
Yeah.
We bounce around a lot, kind of like Pete. It's just, I don't know, Pete, you
7
probably feel the
years,
same
man.
thing. I have like FOMO about history. So if I'm learning too much about like one country or continent, I'm like, I got to go completely different. I got to learn. If I've been all in on Native Americans for 3 months now, and now I got to do ancient China because I don't know enough about that. So
Yep, exactly
how I
the same
feel.
with me. Exactly the same with me. And yeah, that's 7 years, right? Has that flown by for you?
More or
yeah, I would
less.
say
Gone
so.
fast. Because for
Like-
me, I'm like, I started my channel, God, 9 years ago, and it's just flown by, absolutely flown by. The world has changed.
Well, you probably feel the same as us, where I'm like, it's been this many years, and you see those other channels that have like put out 10,000 videos in the last 2 years or something. And you're just like, damn, that's not really many videos that I've made.
Yeah, but as I was saying before, your quality, you're not quantity, which is important.
same with you.
It's good. The things
Yeah.
that you make will stand the test of time. I hope.
Hopefully, like monuments. Yeah, will be the pyramids of YouTube.
Yeah.
The Ozymandias.
After the death of the AIs.
Yeah,
I don't know, we're working on it.
Probably, yeah. Probably,
Yeah, I mean,
we-
Chris recently got accused of having an AI voice, which last time I checked,
No, you know what they said? Because I
it's
was
all
on
his
screen.
recordings
They
because
said,
he'll mess up things and he'll be like, "Shit, no, I didn't mean to say it like that."
no, they accused me of having an AI voice, even though I was on screen for like the sponsored segment. They're like, oh, you can clone your voice with 30 minutes of audio. So he used that to clone his voice and narrate the rest. And I'm like, what, to save 20 minutes or something? Like it's a not really long episode.
Yeah, I know. The fact, I mean, people accuse me of the same thing, and it's like the fact that they think I'm actually capable of doing that, as in like I know how to do that, is wild. Because
Yeah.
I'm a barbarian. I know how to read books and write things on paper. I
Well,
barely know
apparently
how
I
to put videos
recorded
together.
30 minutes of my own voice in order to save time instead of recording 20 minutes of my own voice.
Very strange. Very strange.
And then of course, like Joe's, I don't know. We advertise so much. We put written and illustrated by humans. We show the speed paints. You can check out Joe's catalog and portfolio. We've been making these videos for so long.
Yeah,
we had a
I have
40
YouTube
plus
channel
minute
as well, where I will walk you through like 2-3 hours of me painting something, like from blank canvas to in product.
And on top of that,
but I guess that was AI generated.
we were making. I'd say like our
AI generated. Yeah.
our first videos were more kind of like here's a little video essay, or here's something like a fun fact about history. And Joe said it would take too much time to put his paintings in videos. And then more and more it was like, oh, well, we don't have a visual for this. You could paint something, or we have a narrative and we're like, we need to have we have to have a portrait of this character. Got to have a painting of this battle. And then more and more it just became like chock full of paintings. And so we had in 2021, we had the 41 or something like that minute General Dumas episode. And that's probably like 35 paintings or something. And so that's way before any image generators existed.
That's like a couple years before AI. Yeah.
Way before the Will Smith eating noodles thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and your videos have always been the same style, like same as mine. It's always been the same style, and you can see that evolution over time.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I kind of wonder
it's so boring talking about AI, isn't it? Like it just.
Yeah. I think people are now. One of the things that it's done is people are suspicious of anything that could have taken effort. Like, there's no way that these guys actually have been researching and illustrating this stuff for months. And it's like, we'd probably be producing a video a day if it was all AI. Like
exactly.
Probably release more than.
I've not put a video out for 4 months. Like, do you not think that if it was AI, I'd be doing one every week?
I mean, Chris and I right now are just trying to figure out scheduling for a couple video ideas, and it's just like, okay, we gotta get done with this one first, and then Chris was like, so we could probably finish that. Maybe we get that out late November. I'm like, dude, no, that's going to take at least 2 more weeks to do. And it's like, if we were using AI, we'd just be like, okay, cool. Yeah, for a couple days, and then we'll stitch it together.
The sheer amount of work that goes in. But that's the point, isn't it? The work is the point. Like when I see
the Pieta, in the Vatican, like it would mean less to me if I found out that was just someone with a modern day tools who put that together. That's not the real Pieta. Doesn't matter what the end point is, what the aesthetic conclusion is. Like there's a whole thing of like sympathizing with the artist, knowing it took this many years, that there's a context to the meaning behind this, that he learned these skills from this guild, and that he was inspired by the transcendent and stuff. And if it's just press button, it's done, then it loses so much value.
It means nothing, and we need meaning. Yeah, like we are beings that thrive off meaning, and we're just going to lose the sense of just the world around us. We're going to lose everything.
This is why we look to the past.
Yeah.
Here's my segue. This is why we look to the past. So much of the enjoyment of being a history creator is finding out things we don't know about and then learning everything we possibly can about them. I won't say that we know everything about what we're going to talk about today, but we definitely don't. But we're interested in them, and we're going to present what we found, what interests us, and you guys can also further study, and we'll show you some of the stuff that we found, cool looking stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to introduce some topics that people may not have heard of, because they're a little bit on the obscure side, which is always nice. And as you guys are my guests, you can start. I'll give you the floor. Which one would you like to talk about first?
What do you want to start with, Chris?
Okay, we are going to start with the Gupta Empire.
Ooh, right. We're on our time machine. We'll go back in time to what year are we going back in time to?
So it starts probably around 300 AD is when it becomes an empire.
Ends in the 6th century, right? Late 6th century.
So Joe and I, so this is one of Joe's illustrations that we made for our video. As you can see, there are veritable urban cityscapes in the Gupta Empire. Ancient India is one of those places that you think of as actually a fount of civilization, very, very advanced in all of these different facets, high population. So the Gupta Empire, we did make a video on this, but basically there's this dynasty that is growing out of one area of India, and you have this man Samudragupta that kind of goes on this campaign across decades to subdue all of these parts of India. Of course, it's going to be bloody. It's going to be violent. There's war elephants. All that stuff is fun. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not as violent as it could have been. It's more one of those conquests that you're looking for the subjugation and vassal status of these people, but you're going to leave those kings in power as long as they pay homage to you. And
this is the Buddhist era, is it?
So
is it into the Buddhist era?
So there are Buddhists. The previous empire, the Mauryan Empire, I believe was Buddhist. This one is actually, I'm pretty sure that's right. Mauryan Empire is Buddhist.
Yeah, they became Buddhist for sure.
This empire is actually Hindu, Vaishnavite Hindu.
Got you.
And
so killing is allowed.
One of the nice things about this empire, the Gupta Empire, it is, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
This is like before a lot of the dawn of the ahimsa, no harm principle. But you do have that sort of like this Hindu Vaishnavite honoring Vishnu as the kind of the true highest god, but you still have these other gods. A couple of really fascinating things that come out of this era. So on the Buddhism thing, even though they are Vaishnavite, they are pretty religiously tolerant. So they actually patronize Buddhist temples as well. So it is, you start to, in this Gupta period, from 300 to roughly 600 AD, you start to see this really cosmopolitan civilization that in a lot of ways feels like an ancient Greece or Rome. And that might not be purely a coincidence, because they actually had lots of contacts with the Greek world. So to the northwest of India and in northwest India, you had the Kushans, who were people that after Alexander's conquests, you have this dawn of what is called Greco-Buddhist civilization. I don't know.
I'm a big fan.
Probably,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, if you could look up.
I like that era.
Could you Google like a Kushan or Greco-Buddhist artifact? Some of that stuff is really cool.
Sure.
Pompeii statue, remember, that they found?
Well, so that's not Greco-Buddhist yet, but that's Hindu.
Oh yeah.
So while you're at it Googling stuff, I don't know. I'm making you my editor or something.
No, that's what I'm here for. That is what I'm here for. I'll just show a map of the Kushan Empire for where we're talking about, because the Kushan Empire is massive. It's super interesting, and it's quite unheard of. We are talking after the Kushan Empire, right?
Yeah.
With the Guptas.
So this is, but you still have the vestiges of that, and especially in that heart of the Kushan Empire, you still have those relics of kings that would have Greek-style coins written in Greek, but they're Buddhist. And you have statues. You have statues of the Buddha that look like they could have been made in Athens or something. And it's really this Hellenistic facial features and stuff like that. And if you can look up, and I can put it in the chat too. Actually, it's probably gonna. If you look
I've got a nice statue that I'll put on screen.
Is this the Pompeii one? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
So you can see the Greek style robes.
Yeah. It is. It's pretty amazing. I remember seeing stuff like that in museums, and it blows your mind, because you're like, in my mind, these are two separate worlds. And I think a lot of people have this default assumption that kind of India, China, and the West, those worlds started to come together maybe in the last few centuries and start to gain awareness of each other. But it's not true. You know, there were all these ideas and art styles mixing. I'm going to put in the thing
Absolutely.
this is actually the public chat, but I'm going to put in there the Pompe Lakshmi. If you can Google that, so that is another example of something pre-Gupta, because it's the destruction of Pompeii in 79 AD. But this is an Indian artifact, first century AD Indian goddess that was found in the ruins of Pompeii as an example of how deep these connections were. You know, probably you're starting to see trade from the time of Augustus, trade between Rome
this is awesome.
and India.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah, it's something that you would
really
not
cool.
expect to be there. I love finding stuff like this.
Can you imagine the archaeologists uncovering that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. I mean, that doesn't look Roman, does it?
You find a Hindu artifact in Pompeii from the 1st century AD. Part of you said this should not be here, but there are all these ancient trade connections probably going through Roman Egypt. You're seeing a ton of trade.
Yeah.
And even today, they're finding tons of Roman coins in India, like 1st century, 2nd century AD Roman coins. So what happens with the Gupta Empire is you already have this established sort of connections on the western coast of India. If you can go to that second painting that I gave you, of the ship docked. So that was supposed to be like a faraway ship coming to trade.
Trading. Yeah.
So over the Indian Ocean,
sort of like a plausible recreation of something that could have taken place, and you can see that like that beautiful artistic style of ancient India. And so what's actually happening at that point, again, I think it's always just so easy to think of like there was one power in the world at the time, and that's kind of how we learn it in school. There's like Mesopotamia, and there's Egypt, then there's Greece, then there's Rome, but that's not true. So in through Roman Egypt, they were sending gold, silver, and actually even Italian wine to India. So you could have these ancient Hindus sipping on Italian wine, which is actually just insane. And
that is insane.
It's not like the Romans are just sending these great goods to this, sort of backwater place that doesn't really have anything to give them. So Indians are giving them ivory, spices, silks, iron, and then actually Indian craftsmen were famed throughout the ancient world for their metalworking. So iron and steel were going to Rome through ancient India. And so after the Gupta Empire kind of takes some of those lands along the western coast, these trade links are even stronger. And you're having ideas pass between these places as well. It's inevitable that ideas and an awareness of the Buddhist Hindu world is also interacting with the Greco-Roman world, which I just love that stuff. It's like,
wow.
It's like a crossover.
It's almost the whole of India, really, isn't it? That's impressive. For some reason, I don't know much about the Gupta Empire, even though that time period, 300 to 600 AD, that's like my favorite time period. I need to learn more.
And this is not, I think sometimes there's these empires that are kind of like, they've conquered a lot of land, but they don't leave a massive legacy, or they were a great military power. This, just like Greece or Rome, this is a place that has its own philosophers. It has its own mathematicians, in the same way that we still reference Plato and Aristotle, Socrates. They have people like that in ancient India. So one of them is named Aryabhata. He was somebody who helped find the trigonometric functions. I think the names are actually derived from ancient India, but sine and cosine that you use in school, that comes out of this era, Gupta period era. Wow. A scholar named Aryabhata. He also calculated, again, I think this is like the 5th century. He calculated pi to the 4th decimal place. And he had a quote. It's probably one of the first documented, if not the first documented, to kind of make this observation. He correctly observed that the stars only appeared to move due to the rotation of the Earth. So in that, he had compared it to a ship going by on the shore, and when you're on a ship, it looks like the shore is moving, but it's not actually moving. And so that was his insight about the stars, that the Earth must be rotating, not the stars around the Earth.
It sounds very similar to the sort of the golden age of philosophy in the Greek world.
Yeah, which is why
thinkers coming together.
That's why I wish more people talked about ancient India, because you have all this stuff coming up.
And it was India was using like the decimal system at the time, and wasn't it the first use of zero as an actual numeral comes out of Gupta era India?
So in the Gupta era,
I've heard that
is the first time that they use zero as a placeholder. And our symbol for zero probably ends up coming from India as well. It was like a dot as your placeholder, and now we have our circle. And so actually our numerals, sometimes we say they're Arabic, they're actually Indo-Arabic, because all of this knowledge is kind of traveling throughout the world at the time. And using zero as a placeholder is key for doing mathematics, because instead of skipping over the place where you think there's nothing, now you have something to add against or add on to zero, and you keep that place in a way that conventional mathematics beforehand had not. India also ends up, I think, a few centuries after the Gupta period, but it shows you kind of this progression of scholarship and investment into the sciences and different guilds. India is the first place to use zero as a numeral. So it's as its own number. And this is where like me as a history guy starts to like lose the ability to explain why that's significant. But apparently it's important for conceiving of negative numbers. And once you get into really advanced mathematics, treating zero as though it's a real number.
You know, from mathematics, we have so many important things that couldn't exist without it. So it's really the beginnings of
Could you look up
computation
Nalanda as well?
Who? Sorry.
Could you look up Nalanda, Nalanda?
Sure.
So this is a Gupta period university, widely reputed to be the world's first residential university. So funded to be a place where people could live and learn. You can still visit it today. I believe this is, I wrote it down somewhere, 427 AD.
Wow.
So again, this is like far before we think of kind of like the Oxfords and stuff like that. We have in ancient India these great traditions of learning and scientific and mathematical advancement. You have the religiously tolerant Gupta Empire, militarily powerful, philosophically rigorous. I don't know. It's just so that's my little spiel on the Gupta Empire. It's awesome.
What happens at the end?
Go ahead, Chris.
Will you carry on, Joe, and then we can discuss.
I was just going to mention, kind of touching back on, you mentioned like the Indo-Arabic kind of inheritance that we have. It's kind of interesting because, you know, the Abbasids come around, and then you have Caliph Al-Mansur, who in his court, like a big thing for him was, I think they ended up taking some land in like Pakistan region. And then he kind of knew about the academic legacy of India. And so there was, I believe it was Brahmagupta, who's a little bit after the Gupta Empire. I think he comes about like literally 5 decades after. But he wrote a lot of texts, mathematics, astronomy, etc. That's pretty much all the inherited wisdom of the Gupta Empire. And so like a big thing for the Abbasids was like, well, we need this wisdom as well. So he sent a bunch of scribes to like learn all those traditions and stuff, and begin to write down all the text, makes copies, and put them in like the houses of wisdom in Baghdad and stuff. So that's like kind of the enduring legacy of the Gupta Empire, is all of its riches in its wisdom, in its history, and its all its advancements in astronomy, etc., were preserved by the Abbasids.
alongside a bunch of the things from the classical Greek world as well, because the Abbasids, actually, a lot of the knowledge from the ancient world, the only reason it survives is because it was copied by the Abbasids, and these versions were then recopied, and because at that point, Europe was having a pretty bad time. But in that area, in Baghdad, it was a golden age.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see that when there's like kind of like a ballooning where like one power's down, another one's up. What do they preserve from the other powers that may have faded or have diminished in some way? And so it is like interesting when you have that kind of humility of, you know, this is a completely different culture, it's passed on or something, but we can learn something from them. The same way that, you know, you had Catholic monks still copying down the quote unquote pagan philosophies and trying to learn from Aristotle, Plato, etc.
Absolutely. And then, of course, yeah, it's just interesting who's doing well and who's not. I mean, because at the time this is built, Rome is kind of being beset by Germanic barbarians, and then soon it's, you know, it's about to be burned for the second time in a generation.
Yeah, and then you have shortly coming after the age of the Norsemen and stuff. It is really crazy.
But
so you were asking what happens.
But then, I'm guessing
you were asking what happens to the Guptas.
I'm guessing something bad Rome happens.
Has their
we'll see.
trouble with the Huns. Actually, the Guptas have trouble with the Huns, known as the Alkan Huns, sometimes known as the White Huns. So they start invading in the northwest. Over time, they're able to like regain some of the territory, but you also have these separate kingdoms and dynasties popping up in Middle India. And the Guptas had never been an empire like Rome, where it is a local Gupta administration on the ground running everything. It is your ability to subdue and continue getting the alliance or vassal status of these other powers. So these other powers kind of are independent enough to assert themselves, maybe nominally pay some homage to the Gupta ruler, but over time it just kind of declines. And then those other powers manage to fight off the Huns by themselves and reassert kind of different dynasties across India. I'll show one last thing if you could look them up. This is post-Gupta period, but kind of that middle India, and it shows some of this beautiful architecture. Then I'll let you get to your civilization. If you can look up Ellora Caves, Ellora. Those are, I believe, Buddhist caves. And they're just some of the most insanely beautiful. I don't know that. That could be
I've just unlocked.
That could be a wonder of the ancient world.
I can put the browser on this page, and we can look at the images that way. That's clever, isn't it?
All right.
Look at these. It's incredible.
It must have taken so much effort. It's probably just AI generated, right?
Would these be painted?
So this is pretty much all carved. I mean, if you look up different pictures of Ellora caves, you're going to see, I think it's basalt, but these
would the
massive.
Would the rock have been covered in paint?
It almost looks like there are some remnants there, but I'm not told.
Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't done enough research into this, but
I see some red there, but that might be some silt framing.
Because the classical Greek and Roman world, of course, was actually very colourful. We have this idea of it being plain marble, but it was all...
Same with Egypt. Egypt wasn't just tan, it was white, blue,
I would assume this was coloured. I mean, it looks...
Yeah. Some of these are just so...
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, this has got paint on it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Definitely like murals underground. You have all these ancient Buddhist...
a tantric like Buddhist goddess.
Kind of just preserved in these different caves. But this stuff is Indiana Jones. I mean, going into these ancient shrines and it's like impossibly big.
Very cool.
So a lot of these, if not all of these, were carved out of like a single stone. So you're literally carving into the mountain, and apparently not making any mistakes, and just making these really, really beautiful mountains out of just the solid mountain itself.
Yeah.
Beautiful temples. So that
Very
was my last thing.
Gondorian.
That's not Gupta, but I guess it touches on kind of that period. This is like 600 to 1000 AD, I think.
This is just post Gupta then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing, amazing. So I guess the very beginning of Ellora Caves is the end of the Gupta period.
Yes. Yeah, like that. So
That's
this says
incredible.
that one says it was carved out of one. I like the person. Huge, enormous rock. Not huge, not enormous. Both.
Yeah, huge animal.
It's like something Trump would say.
Yeah,
Huge, enormous rock they have.
it's true. Awesome. And I suppose the Huns who invaded, they became Indian, I guess.
So some of them were banished, but actually the Huns who initially invaded, we have coins from that period, and you can see those Huns, and they are trying to assert themselves as true Hindu rulers in India.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that they tend to not be Vaishnavites, so they aren't worshiping the god Hindu primarily. They are the Shaivites, so they believe Shiva, who is the god that can actually bring destruction. So sometimes there's a connection there. There's still Shaivites today, and it's not like it's an especially violent religion or something. But some scholars assume that maybe the god of destruction was slightly more appealing to these rulers that wanted to come in and kind of make their name and threaten people who didn't want them there. But I think it's around like 550 or 600 that they're actually able to, these different Indian powers are able to oust the Alkan Huns. But these Huns likely had, it's not like they're the ancestors of the Huns that reached
No.
That reached Rome, but it's probably that they had a common ancestor.
Yeah. Maybe the Xiongnu.
Yeah,
Maybe.
possibly.
Maybe the Xiongnu. I know opinions are still a bit split on that, but there's a great book. The name of the guy escapes me, but it's about the Huns, and it came out a couple of years ago, and he's basically well into the idea that the Xiongnu were the progenitors of all the different Hunnic peoples, and then they kind of, some went to Europe, some went to India, some eventually conquered Persia.
Yeah,
and,
I'm always
they all split
I'm always
off.
like hesitant to bring up any stuff like that in videos because I just have a sense that in 1 year someone's gonna say that's nonsense.
It's nonsense, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I like it when scholars go on a limb and they're just like, yeah, why not? But yeah, interesting topic. I have not included any Huns, unfortunately, but now I realise I probably should have because I do like the Huns. The Huns are very interesting.
We need to do a video
We're
just
actually
on the Huns.
Yeah, you guys need to do Huns. That would be awesome. Do Attila.
Yeah.
That'd be classic history dose. We're going to go to Scotland, guys.
All right.
We're going to go to Scotland because it's the same time period. And we're going to look at a bit of a misconception. So this is kind of, in the 1800s, this is what scholars saw the ancient Scottish as looking like. Just sort of rough barbarians. He's kind of got weird tattoos on him. Look at these weird tattoos.
He's got
And
nipple
a big,
tattoos.
big scimitar, and he's got the classic severed head, and he's got a big mustache, and he looks a bit sort of in their time, and that's kind of what the Scottish maybe would have looked like in the 1700s, sort of a mustache and the kind of almost 1700s hair.
Yeah, he's going to the pub for
yeah.
for a beer.
Maybe a bit like Billy Connolly, if you know who that is. Famous Scottish comedian. You might not even know who he is. He might just. Do you know Billy Connolly?
Sounds familiar.
He's very
Does
popular in
sound
the
familiar.
UK.
I think so.
This is another one, another just mad image from the 1800s. But basically, what I'm getting at is, this is the Picts, and they didn't look anything like this. And in fact, they may have been some of the most advanced people in Britain at that time. So this is after the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century and the 6th century AD. Everything's kind of collapsed in Britain, pretty much. The currency currency is gone. There's the monetary system that existed before is gone. Urban life is gone. The population plummets. Forests return. People disperse into much smaller communities than before, and everything's kind of going bad, apart from north of Hadrian's Wall, because in Scotland, in the areas that were never taken over by the Roman Empire, they were only sort of sporadically invaded every now and again. Things weren't so bad, and interestingly, you do have large comings together of people. You do have large sort of proto-urban areas, one of which, until a few years ago, was assumed to be kind of entirely an Iron Age hill fort, really. So this is a classic Iron Age hill fort. It's called Tappernoth in Aberdeenshire, in sort of northern Scotland, really, in the Highlands. And yeah, it was assumed to be a classic Iron Age hill fort, until only in the last 10 years, 5 years even, it was reinterpreted by archaeologists, and they realised, this is a lovely image of it,
wow,
that these roundhouses, there's 800 of them, 800 roundhouses.
It's like a city?
Pretty much, and it dates to the Pictish period, which is absolutely insane. So
wow.
During the Pictish period, in the 5th century AD, 6th century AD,
wow.
This was happening in Scotland, and it's completely unprecedented for the time period. Up until this sort of discovery, I guess, was made.
Do we know how many people would have lived here? I'm trying to ballpark it in my eyes. I'm like, 10,000.
Ballpark, I have heard 5,000, which is mental. However, that may only be, this classic seasonally gathering sort of thing. Like, it may have only been certain times the people would come together here. But certainly, if you look at that, that is not entirely a seasonal thing. Some of these people were living here permanently. So,
what was the surrounding wall made
out of? A couple
of?
of thousand. Yeah, that's a wall surrounding it. And then up at the top, you've got
completely stone.
Stone built. There's lots of stone around here, so yeah, stone built.
Getting some
Do we have a
Haida
sense?
vibes.
Do we have a sense? Was there like a ruler or a priest on top?
Probably. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, both. I think it would have been a king who had religious duties, because this is before Christianity. So this is pretty much, they are living a similar sort of life to the Iron Age Celts, basically. Christianity, this is like 5th century AD, 6th century AD.
So at this point, it's Ireland becoming Christianized? You have the first efforts, right? Late 400s?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But Scotland, not quite yet. Although there's an argument that Tappernoth ends as Christianity comes into Scotland. So I keep saying Scotland. It's Pict land at this point. It's not Scotland yet. The Scots basically come across from Ireland. It's a bit confusing because the Scots were actually Irish originally. They come over and they're in the island, basically, the Western Islands, and then they spread over to the rest of mainland, what is now Scotland.
Would they get mad if you said that to an actual Scotsman today?
Some, maybe, although I think it's sort of now pretty much accepted by most, because it's just unequivocally, like, it is the case. There's just so much evidence. But unfortunately, the Picts, they get forgotten because eventually Scotland becomes Scotland. It's not Pictland anymore. And even though now we have definitive evidence that the Picts, in many ways, they Christianized themselves. The idea actually previously was that it was missionaries from the outside coming into this kind of primitive land. But there's a monastery now at Portmahomack, which is north of here. And it's a really interesting place. They found sort of writing styluses. So monks there were writing on vellum in the 6th century AD. So, the same time as Columba was supposed to have gone to convert the Picts. The Picts were already in monasteries writing their own, whatever they were writing down. Cool. So it's like one of these crazy things where we've massively underestimated the Picts, basically. Partly because of good old Victorian racism, essentially, against Scottish people. Victorian scholars would, same as the Romans had done before, they tended to denigrate the people of the north, look down on them.
And probably a bit of an assumption that you weren't Christian or civilized until we gave it to you or something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. But also, yeah, the idea that the pre-Christian peoples were all barbaric. But yeah, these guys, not Christian yet, but living in this massive place, which is completely, awesome. There's nothing else like this. There's nothing else like this in Britain at the time at all.
When were they Christianized, roughly?
6th century AD, pretty much. But yeah, the big revelation is Port Mahomet, which is this. Basically, it's a monastery, sort of near Berghead, which is another massive fort like this one. And as far as I'm aware, it doesn't exist in any written sources. It's sort of this place that only exists in archaeology, which I always like because it throws the established story out the window very often. Because this period, there's not many historical sources, so you can write like an entire book based on 3 historical sources, and then if a new archaeological site comes along, sometimes the whole story has to be thrown out. So I'll show you another, because this is a very unusual fort because it's massive, but there are loads and loads of these forts all over Scotland.
It's like a citadel at that point.
This is one called Berghead, so this is prior to Tapa North. This was like the biggest one basically. And these walls are gigantic.
Looks very Incan, actually.
Is this
it does weirdly look
northern
Incan,
coast or something?
Huge walls. This is up on the northern coast of Murray, so even further north from Tapa North.
Is this also 5th century?
Yes, this is 5th century. This actually ends in the Viking invasions, so it's burned in the 9th century AD.
Wow.
And they put an end to it. Because, the Picts, they ended up having quite a bad time. The Scots are on one side and the Vikings are on the other side, and they get just sandwiched between these two peoples. And basically they just become Scottish, is essentially what happens. And then they're almost rewritten. Their history is kind of rewritten, and the Pictish line of kings goes away, and the Scots become the new rulers.
Wow.
And that's Berghead. What else did I have to show you?
This is why we're doing this stream. Just a bunch of stuff that maybe the other one doesn't know about.
Pretty much, man. Pretty much. Oh, this is what I was going to show you. So this is what the Picts
cavalry?
Depicted themselves as. So this is their own depiction of themselves, and they're pretty they're doing well, and they're wearing clothes.
Do you know what's interesting too?
Got that small buckle shield and the lane. It looks like the lane robes that the Irish had as well.
Oh yeah, it's the same sort of cultural milieu as the Irish.
But what's interesting here is that the Irish didn't really use cavalry, like even in the medieval age.
Oh yeah, they didn't.
There's depictions of them on horseback, but probably mostly just for transport.
Yeah.
It looks like the Picts, like maybe the
Picts,
the Gaelic people that came, or the Gallic people that came, chose not to adopt the cavalry, but it looks like they haven't figured
the
out
Picts
here.
were, as far as we're aware, their own depictions have a lot of cavalry. They seem like they were quite adept at cavalry. They potentially were. They had quite small ponies, but they would come and raid, and then they'd get away as quick as possible. Because of course they shared a border with the Romans, a land border with the Romans. So they developed slightly differently to the Irish, because the Irish didn't have to fight the Romans on land, basically, most of the time.
It's got to be slightly better than your neighbor. That's the development of technology, I feel like.
That's right. But if you're the Picts, you've been absolutely slammed for hundreds of years by the Romans.
Did they have many interactions when the Anglo-Saxons came around?
Yes, they did. There's a bit of back and forth conquests. The Anglo-Saxons attempted to take Pict land. They managed to take all of the southern area of Pict land. Did I put an image? Oh, I don't think I did put an image. There's a famous battle called Dunnectane, basically, where the Picts actually definitively threw the Anglo-Saxons out of Pict land. And it was a terrible defeat for the Kingdom of Northumbria, and the King Edgefrith was killed in the fighting, and the Picts won the day. and then the Anglo-Saxons were out basically. And it wasn't until 11th, 12th century AD that the borders would change again, basically. So, yeah, lots of fighting back and forth. The Picts, they were, you know, I guess just what I'm trying to put the point across is previously they were always seen as barbarians, but they really weren't barbarians. They weren't any different to the rest of the people on the island. And I think life in Pictland would have been just as good as life in Essex or life in Cornwall at the same time.
Yeah, I think
they weren't
it's also
different, you know. They weren't
one of the ways
they were seen as a people apart previously, but then they're not, basically.
Yeah, one of the ways that we also conceive of history is that we end up like applying technologies or developments that one group either inherited or got through conquest, and then applying that, or making judgments about how they treated their enemies. And it's kind of like, most of the time, if you're judging a civilization on how it treats its enemies, it's really, really bad. Like, nobody comes out looking good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But also, you think of things like, you know, you could have like an Anglo-Saxon pride, or like Britannia's pride or something, and it's like, you know, look at these Europeans bringing writing to the New World or something, and all of this. You know, these learned inventions. But actually, if you're breaking those things down, it's like, okay, they're following a Semitic religion. Nobody wrote in Britain until the Romans got there. And then, as we were talking about before, a lot of the mathematical or philosophical contributions that you've gotten, scientific or even the classics, are owed to the Indian and Muslim world as well.
Yes, and then before that, a load of stuff goes back to ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah. And then so it is a weird thing that you're kind of at Jamestown saying, like, look at what we English bring you, and it's like, it's not yours. You're like, it's a hodgepodge of everything that a connected world had kind of collected.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you want to, I suppose, look at Britain before the Semitic kind of influence of, like, the, you know, Jesus religion, Christianity, Jesus religion, before Christianity.
What's that called again? The Jesus religion.
Before Jesus religion arrives, before Christianity arrives, the Picts are pagan, and it's this sort of like really interesting flourishing of paganism, basically, that they've depicted in art that you can't really see anywhere else. You know, who's this big wolf figure? What's happening here? It's some mythological scene, you know. Loads of the Pictish carved stones, as well, I should say, are some of the most amazing amazing tools from this time to tell the story of what's going on, because there's so many of them. There are hundreds of them all over the place, depicting these scenes of some of them depict mythological scenes, other ones depict just like things that are actually happening at the time, and other ones have this thing called the Pictish script, which nobody's managed to unlock yet, but it seems like it's a primitive writing system. Crazy.
I'm wondering how much so. It seems like we know a lot about the Picts and stuff, mainly through like modern archaeology.
Yeah, how much... we really don't. We don't know much about the Picts. That's the best.
Yeah,
thing about
that's my question is like when you get to certain parts in, you know, Scotland's history where there's strife and stuff, like Edward the First, Hammer of the Scots and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
How much does is there a cultural identity trying to tie back to these more ancient, you know, pre-Christian forms as well? Is there some sort of like identity
really
to be found there, or is it completely novel at that point?
Not really. This is the problem with the Picts, and it's all, you know, it's been called the Pictish problem. It's because they really just disappear. I mean, there was a time when it was thought that the Picts had literally disappeared and been replaced by the Scottish. I think really what happened is their culture shifted because the Scots were then the kings. Therefore, if you wanted to get ahead, you became Scottish, basically. So you started speaking Scottish. So the Pictish language died out, Pictish culture died out, and because a lot of it was pre-Christian, that wasn't fashionable anymore. So it was the Irish pre-Christian stuff that survived, but not the Pictish pre-Christian stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big mystery.
Should move on to.
Let's go. Where are we going now?
All right. We're going to South America, the Moche Civilization.
Oh yes.
I think entirely centered in the kind of desert coast of Peru.
Yes. I'm a
Pete,
big fan.
have you been here? I feel like you went to
been
Peru,
here.
right?
I've been
Egypt of South America.
Okay.
It is. This is the Huaca de la Luna or Sol. Is this Huaca del Sol? One is the
Looks like
Temple of the
Sol.
Moon. One is the Temple of the Sun, and it's in the Moche Valley. And this is basically the main site essentially. But there are lots of other massive, super interesting sites.
Yeah. So this is the largest adobe structure, brick structure, in the Americas ever.
Yeah.
Maybe until, I don't know, until somebody built a town in Arizona or something.
Until the rise of the next Moche civilization after the next Dark Age in 1,000 years' time.
And so we have the this Huaca del Sol is actually made out of 130 million adobe bricks. It's thought to
that's a lot of
be
bricks.
This massive like coalescence of people who lived here. So it's believed that these bricks came, like contributions to the constructions were made from over 100 different communities in the surrounding area. And so the Moche civilization, let me just put a timestamp on it for you guys. It's about 100 AD to 800 AD. And again, you have like this really, I don't know, I think it's just so, I wanted to pick something like this because I think it's so easy for us to assume you kind of have old worlds, the old world where much of it is, tribal or slightly disorganized until you get to the Incas and the Aztecs, and then the Spanish arrive, and that is the history of the pre-Columbian Americas. And it's of course not the case at all. There we go.
Just got to show this guy. This is a Moche lord that I got from Sipan, and wow. Yeah, he's looking pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah. So they have these veritable kings, and again, like Joe saying, ancient Egypt. There are a lot of things that seem like ancient Egypt. So you have these massive, almost like pyramid structures made of tons of bricks, and then on top of that, you have these lords entombed with treasures in gold. If you can find a picture of the Lord of Sipan.
I'm going to put the Lord of Sipan,
Yeah, they have 13 royal tombs they uncovered.
I think there's sacrificial victims around him.
Big time.
Were probably his servants.
For some reason, I'm not getting the pictures on my end. Let me just... Okay.
I see it.
So this is a depiction of one of the lords of Sipan. There were many that were discovered there. I think it's the richest series of tombs ever discovered in the New World.
Wow.
Yeah. And they all similar to the Egyptians too. They had like funerary masks.
Yes.
So you can look up and they have it doesn't look exactly like the Egyptians, but it's the same concept. It's like these gold or copper plated masks. And they found on some of their artifacts, like the masks and stuff, there's like this really thin golden film, but it might actually be made of like copper or some copper alloy. But people don't know how they achieved that film. Like in other cultures, they would do like a really small like golden foil or something, but there's like an even film over it. And there's like some theories that they may have found like acidic solution somewhere in Peru, and they would have like melted down the gold into that and then like dipped copper into it. So you'd have like this really thin golden layer on the outside.
Wow.
So it's just like this idea that they were so precise with metallurgy. And then what were those, Chris? Like the ceramic vessels with the artistic realism of like...
Yeah, so I'll get to those in a second. Yeah. But Pete, could you also show the Huaca de la Luna? I just sent something in the private, the studio chat of the stream. It's just a Reddit post that somebody made, but this is, you have these like beautiful murals that just like dwarf anybody who walks by them. So there's the Huaca del Sol, which is the big structure that we saw. This was smaller. in like ceremonial.
Chris, you've assumed I know how to use a computer. You've sent me something, and I'm just like, where is it?
Studio chat.
Where's the studio chat? What's the studio?
Can you see the public chat inside the studio?
Yes, I know where
so
that is.
There should be a little arrow that to the left that goes back, and then you can see the studio chat.
Oh. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing.
If you look up like Waka de la Luna.
Yeah, I'm gonna
just look that up. Mural.
We'll do it this way.
Look up mural.
Oh, I have been here.
And if you find any ones with people in front of it,
if you just type in Reddit next to it, I think that should be the first one that pops up.
I've got my own image of this that I can show.
All right, it's better be you next to it.
It's not. I'm not next to it. Is this where you want it?
Yeah, I think this is part of the same wall.
Yeah,
but I like the
with all the sacrificial victims.
Enormous it is, and yeah, it's just so. This is another beautiful art piece. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Apparently held together
big
by
as
scaffolding.
Well. It's real big.
Yeah, so I think like a person there, at least in that Reddit post, showed like they would only come up halfway to that bottom, like white section there, with the people lined up.
Yeah. At some point, Pete will learn where the studio chat is, and he will show you that.
I mean,
we
guys.
can just put it in the public chat.
Put it in the public chat. Yeah, do that. Do that.
The thing is, I think it's probably YouTube's gonna think I'm spamming something, so the people in the YouTube chat might not see it. I feel like links usually don't work, but
Stefan Milo's in the chat. He says the Moche had some really specific bedroom antics too. At least that's what their pottery suggests. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing they're most famous for.
The Chimu actually. So the Chimu are kind of like an inheritor culture in that same desert area. Yeah. And the Incas, when they overtook the Chimu, they thought of them as like incredibly debased and licentious when it came to sex.
Is that right? Yeah. Interesting.
And the Incas had some. I feel like the Incas had some modern morals, other than the occasional child sacrifice. You know how it is. But it wasn't on a massive scale. The sacrifice wasn't on a massive scale compared to some of the Mesoamerican examples. But the Incas were against incest if it was a cousin or closer. Unless you were the ruler, then you should marry your sister.
Yeah, but that's the ruler was like a person apart, different, like master race kind of thing, like
you weren't allowed to eat dogs,
species,
which
no
is
dogs.
Cool. Yeah,
lots of guinea pigs though.
Yeah, no, guinea pigs are actually not a wild animal at all. I don't know that we know what they look like before domestication, but they are just rodents that
they live in the houses, right?
And and like, if you look at if you've ever interacted with a guinea pig, you're like, this thing is not surviving in the wild. Because they're just kind of like pudgy.
So they live on
squeaking things,
scraps that people would leave behind, and then occasionally they get eaten for their trouble.
Yeah. So back to the Moche, though. Part of my thing is I kind of want to show how the Andes. It's not just the Incas. It's this sort of Andean region, this part of South America, is its own cradle of civilization that goes back so many thousands of years. Big time. There's something called the Cumbe Mayo aqueduct. So these are aqueducts that are not like the freestanding Roman ones, but they're these rock aqueducts that just go all throughout the Andes. The Cumbe Mayo one is 3,500 years old. So that is 3,000 years before the Incas. You have... Oh, did you have a picture on hand? Wow.
There we go.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this is 3,000 years before the Incas. They're already doing stuff like this to support these flourishing metropolitan communities in South America.
Yeah.
And then could you go to the portrait vessels that I put in? So these
of course. Just to add as well, there's the Cumbe Mayo is incredible, But there's even earlier. There's a place called, Corral. Have you heard of this place?
No.
So it's, we're talking 3rd millennium BC, and it's an entire city with pyramids, like agriculture, all this stuff, just insanely early, kind of the same time as Old Kingdom Egypt.
Yeah.
Just out there, and it was only really properly investigated in like the 1990s up until that point.
No, these are
barely known about.
You had a good name on the thumbnail, like Forgotten Worlds. I feel like these are the things when people talk
Forgotten
about
Worlds.
an advanced lost civilization. There's not one. There's like
No, there's so many. I'll quickly
5,000 of them, and we're
just
still
on
finding.
the topic of access blocked. You get the gist.
Wow.
On the topic of ancient Peru, basically, this is the city of Corral, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
That's nuts. Is there like a reconstruction? Has someone done like an artistic?
No, this is what it really looks like. But it was buried under sand, so that's excavated. So that's why it looks
very
so
Egyptian of them.
Kind of well preserved.
By sand.
All right, let's see those portrait
looks a bit
vessels.
Egyptian.
That'll be kind of my last thing on the Moche. Then I'll let you get to your civilization. But I love these portrait vessels. These are portraits of people who lived in the Moche civilization. And one of the things that's so striking to me, the Moche are 100 to 800 AD. We tend to think of like stereotypical kind of like Aztec-y art style is something that predominated Central and South America, and that's not true. And I think we also tend to think of sort of naturalism as something that is some evolution that only sort of comes out of ancient Greece or something. This is so many years, this is 1,000 years before contact. And you have what basically just looks like you are staring in the face of somebody who probably looked exactly like this.
Yeah. These are real people. Look how different they are. These are not.
Yeah.
There's not a standardized way of making this. This is
looks like that one shows a little imperfection on the lips as well.
I really like this one. Yeah, it's actually he's got a little almost cleft.
It's like dedication to realism.
If you zoom in
on
the one that I shared too, you can make out like a subtle expression on these people. Is just like
he's kind of judging
there's
us.
Something. Is he probably looked like this as he was posing for it?
Yeah. True. He's like posing for his portrait.
Yeah.
I love this one as well.
It's like this is so humanizing just to see somebody from the past, ancient times.
Yeah.
With I don't know. It's like it's something so trivial. Time. Obviously, people laughed back then. Obviously, people smiled. But to actually see someone like a full on like just cheesing it smile like in the ancient Moche civilization is really humanizing for me. I love finding stuff like that.
It's like he did that when the photographer was taking the picture, and he's like, "Oh, go on." He's got it. Then they've got to do it again.
Just chisel it real fast.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these as well. Have you guys been to Peru yet?
No, that's probably going to be our next group trip to.
Oh, you've got to do it. You've got to do it in the Larco Hoyle Museum in Lima, which is kind of like the main archaeology museum at the moment because the big national one is closed. Maybe it'll be open when you get to go, but Larco Hoyle Museum, it has literally definitely hundreds, maybe thousands of these pots, and you can go in the back. Wow. And it's one of the most unique museums I've ever been to because you can actually walk into the back as part of the museum and see all the storage cabinets. So this is the storage stuff at the back, but you can go in and look at it, and there's just
crazy.
Thousands upon thousands
raiding the museum.
Yeah, this is me just
prior to you accidentally pushing over one
case.
With
this exact image.
Yeah. What's that?
I saw a wanted poster with this exact image.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I can't go to Peru again.
I barely got out of the country because my bag was just full of stuff. Thing is,
but that's my Moche. Let's see what your next one is.
Yeah, man. I suppose just the scale of how many pots is crazy as well, because these are only the ones that have survived,
Were these all? I know about their existence. Were they mostly underground or something? You
These
know?
are all looted. So basically, Larco was a landowner, and in Peru, basically, there's a whole. It's kind of a career to become a looter because lots of people have nothing essentially. So if you can find some ancient treasures and sell it, you can make your fortune. So many people do it. And what he did, he offered his workers a bit more money than the looters would basically if they brought the things to him. So he just stockpiled all this stuff that was taken out of ancient tombs. So the context is lost, but the pots survive.
Peru
which
have
is
its own
good,
sort of Egyptology craze, but like for its own cultures.
To a certain extent, not hugely though, because of Christianity. Really, there's a almost looking down on some of this stuff in the past. People aren't that interested, from what I could see anyway. Obviously, a lot of people are, but in general, I think they sometimes see the Moche, for example, as like a different people in a way, like not necessarily them. It's fashionable to see yourself as descended from Europeans. I think you'll have to go and see for yourselves. It's awesome place, Peru. Definitely one of my favourite countries.
It was kind of interesting.
It's wild.
Last year, I was reading a book on the Pilgrims, the Mayflower, and everything, and they talked about how their expedition, the Pilgrims, were kind of wary of actually trying to raid any indigenous grave sites because they said, like, prior settlers who did that usually got into trouble with the local tribes, but also because there wasn't going to be any Inca gold in it. And I guess there was an assumption along like the coast of America that maybe you could find Inca graves there because this was, in the wake of, the Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire. And so there were all these stories flown around. They had these great, artistic, gold pieces and treasure that they were buried with. And it's kind of interesting how that trickled all the way up into North America.
This is the myth of El Dorado, the golden man who was said to have risen out of the lake every morning and covered himself in gold because he had so much of it. Which that may actually come from the Muisca people of Colombia. But yeah, the Spaniards searched for gold everywhere. This site partly looks a bit weird as it does because the Spaniards in the 16th century diverted a river to try and essentially like flood this and they were hoping that gold was just going to fall out of it, but there's no gold inside because that's not what it is. Sad story really, but but the thing survives because even a river couldn't destroy it because it's that big.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right, that's our little South American detour. Where are you bringing us next, Pete?
That is a good question. Where are we going to go now? I think... All right, let's go to... This really is a forgotten world. Let's go to Afghanistan. So, have you ever heard of the Helmand culture?
No.
Cool. So let's go. All right, I'll take you back to around about the year 1900. This bloke, Aurel Stein, who is a Hungarian-British guy. I think he's basically Hungarian, but then he becomes British, essentially. He works for the British Empire, and he's a cartographer and a geographer, archaeologist, travel writer, basically all these things. And what he does is he just essentially starts off in British India and he goes east and he sees how far he can get, basically. And it's sort of in the time of the Great Game between Britain and Russia. So he's going into previously uncharted lands, uncharted by Westerners anyway. And he comes across this vast desert called the Taklamakan Desert, which in Turkish means when you go in, you don't come out. And it's a brutal environment. Here's Aurel Stein. He goes in, with his guides, and he's good at like meeting the locals and working with them, so they keep him alive essentially. And what he finds is just absolutely loads of archaeology. So he finds just wild amounts of ancient things everywhere. And this is one of the sites that he comes across, which is called, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Shah-e-Sokta. Probably isn't that, but that's what we're going with for now. And it's in modern day Iran. And eventually, I think by the 1930s, when there's a little bit of digging officially that goes on, it's known as the burned city because it's essentially meets its end something like 2200 BC. It's burned down and that's it. It's done.
Wow.
But up until that point, from around 3000-ish to 2200 BC, so 3rd millennium BC, it's just this insanely flourishing place, a city of 10,000 people, something like that, maybe more, with sort of ziggurat looking pyramid type things, temples, writing, civil engineering, agriculture, all these hallmarks of so-called civilization here in the middle of nowhere in the desert that nobody had heard of, nobody had any idea existed, but there it was.
So what do we know about them now?
Still not a huge amount.
Have we gleaned much from their writing?
Nope. Only the fact that there are 2 writing systems, I believe. One of them is Elamite, which is still undeciphered. The other writing system was potentially a local one, because this is eastern Iran. It's sort of... The Elamites are western Iran, basically, and this is eastern Iran. It's a big country. And, maybe some sort of local script, but never been deciphered. In the 1950s, over the modern-day border in Afghanistan, a similar kind of thing is found. So this is the city of Mundigak, which again is vast cityscape in a barren land now. The modern river has diverted at some point in the past, leaving it just sort of desert, basically dusty desert. But when archaeologists went there in the 1950s, led by the French, a guy called Jean Cassel, he dug there, and he found, like, this is one of the temples. This is a plan of one of the temples there. He found a palace. This is the palace of Mundigak. These are the colonnades of Mundigak here.
Wow.
But it's just like in the 1950s, unfortunately, due to the way that things were dug, they dug this out of the ground, and then by the next 2 seasons, it was gone because it just couldn't really be preserved. But again,
so these are the only pictures that we have.
These are the pictures of the place.
Wow.
Unfortunately, if you were to go back now, it wouldn't look like this because it's just sort of a snapshot was taken, and as much recording of everything was done, and it's kind of just the elements have taken these colonnades away because it's all kind of made of adobe again, so similar to Mesopotamia, similar to Peru, as we were just saying. It's this way of building which is very good in the moment, but then after a few hundred years, if it's neglected, it's gone. Because it's basically packed earth, it's packed mud. I'll show you some artifacts from here. So these are some interesting artifacts that were found. They're a little bit like the Indus Valley civilization. It looks like they were trading quite a bit with the Indus Valley, but it's still quite far away from the Indus Valley. This is up near Kandahar, basically, like up in the high plateaus of Afghanistan, what is now Afghanistan. And it's interesting because, like, it appears to just be in this vast landscape and there's kind of nothing else around it from that time period. But surely there were other places too that we just haven't found yet. And this is really, like, it makes me excited for the future because surely if things calm down a bit in Afghanistan, they let archaeologists back in. It's a real just. There's going to be so much that's found there. This is a plan from the air of the city, so there's all these different areas. They're like, there's one area there, and as I understand it, the whole thing was covered by a perimeter wall as well.
Wow.
And then, like the burned city in eastern Iran, Shari Sokhtar, this is destroyed in a fiery conflagration at the end as well. Something like 2200 BC, round about that time. So yeah, something was going on at that time, and urban life kind of came to an end. Pastoralism became the norm, and people just didn't live in cities like that for a long time. What else have I got to show you? Oh yeah, this is the other one. This is the other interesting one. They have these seal stones, which I think are really interesting, because you have these trading seals all across the world at this time. You find
Did they
things
have
like this.
a system of currency? Do we know? Was this basically
No.
it?
So that was a kind of a currency?
This is possibly related to. This is economic, basically. So this is a kind of a way of that a trader or just a distributor of goods could stamp what was theirs, basically, and they could probably pass it along, and it would have their stamp seal on it.
Like a contract, essentially?
Probably. Yeah, maybe something like that. But
That's pretty interesting.
It's a lot of speculation. But yeah, but you find these things all throughout Asia, all the way up to Greece. So at the same time, there's a place called the House of the Tiles at Lerna in southern Greece, and it has similar stamp seals to this. So there's some sort of like unified trade system that's going on over this vast area.
Wow.
During that time period, 3rd millennium BC.
That's incredible.
What else can I say? That's probably about it. But like, it's just awesome. And this is the reason why I'd love to go to Afghanistan. I'd love to go here, because I just want to know what it's like now. And is Mundagak still there, or has it been dynamited like the Bamiyan Buddhas? Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just kind of forgotten about.
We don't know. We really don't know.
I can't. I'd love to find someone who does know. So if anybody in the chat does know, let us know. But I genuinely genuinely don't know.
In Afghanistan, there is that surviving pagan culture, the Kalash people. Do you know?
I don't know about that, but that sounds great.
I was wondering if there is continuity. I know. I remember looking into it a while ago, and like their art style is very like Indo-European. It's very Indus Valley art style. And
if
their
it's
beliefs are very.
It would be after this then.
Okay.
This, as far as I can see, is very similar to the Indus Valley civilization, and then the Indo-Europeans, sort of the Indo-Aryans, I suppose technically, they come in after the Indus Valley and after the Helmand culture. Some people think it was possibly them who destroyed this culture, but it's like one of those things where it's up in the air. Everyone's got a different idea. But this is a sorely understudied area, the Helmand culture, to the point that these two disparate places, Shari Sokhtar and Mundagak, are often lumped in together as this singular Helmand culture, even though they're really far apart from each other, and they're not necessarily the same culture. It's just that's how archaeologists like to lump things together. But yeah, what's going on? It's like partial story, only a tiny bit of the story. Obviously no writing, no references to these people in written evidence or myths or anything like that. So yeah, that's certainly a forgotten world. I had no idea.
That's
certainly a forgotten
world. I
world.
hate when I realize that, when you like tell me, oh no, they had monuments and cities and all this stuff. I'm like, why don't I know about this?
Because no one does. No one does. It's like so unheard of. It completely baffles me.
It's just the 70 people on this live stream that now know about it.
Yeah.
And
but this is I'm fascinated by that time period.
I thought you were saying R.L. Stein, the guy who wrote
the Goosebumps guy.
Yeah.
Maybe
he also did this. Yeah.
Maybe he did it too. Yeah. Goosebumps guy is his.
Yeah, it was just his kids' books that got big, but he also found an ancient civilization. It really
probably did. Yeah. A-U-R-E-L Stein. He's most famous for discovering a lot of cave paintings in China and then stealing them and bringing them to the British Museum. That's what he's most famous for.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's of his time. He was very, very, very British Empire. Very good at what he did and very fearless and this wild, he'd go into the unknown and he'd go out there, didn't care. But also looted a lot of stuff. Because I think his idea was if he didn't get it, the Russians would. It was like this great game sort of thing. But yeah. Man of his time. And also, yeah, it's just...
All right.
Whew. Mundagak. There it is. If anybody wants to learn more, on my Substack page, shout out History Time with Pete on Substack. You can learn all about it. And that's that. Let's go. Where are we going next?
We'll do. We are going to Polynesia.
Yes.
So this one is a little bit tricky to put a timestamp on, but maybe if you could just throw up the map that's on there.
Love Polynesia.
Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of shows you. I don't know. I think it's
everywhere.
It's so easy to just sort of assume that like wherever people are on a piece of land, they must have been there for many, many thousands of years. But actually Polynesia is a really fascinating place. And one of the cool elements is how recently it was populated. So, I guess like the traditional arc here is that you have people coming out of Taiwan, Austronesian people thousands of years ago. And then over the course of this like next century or so, you can see like 1500 years ago is Fiji. And then I think that the Hawaii one's been a little bit updated. That's usually now pinned to about 900 AD. And then that Isle de Paques, that's Easter Island or Rapa Nui, that's probably around like 1200, 1300 AD. And so one of the really fascinating things is that this is not really an ancient migration. This is a medieval migration into a lot of what becomes Polynesia.
Yeah.
One of the awesome things about that is that the people who are in New Zealand, the Maori, that we think of as like indigenous New Zealanders today, and then the Rapa Nui, and then Hawaiians, a lot of that group, like Tahiti, Samoa, have so much similarity in terms of the gods that they worship. Oftentimes, they're very, very similar art styles. So like that's why you can kind of see like this classic like tiki or like shrine of a god that looks really similar in Hawaii, or the patterns of tattoos are still really similar in these places, because they kind of, I don't know, it'd almost be like if a bunch of Europeans broke up and went to different islands in 1200 AD, and then they met each other in 2000 AD. What are the differences here? And it's like, okay, well, we actually still do have a ton of similarities, and a lot of those languages have evolved. And I guess I don't speak any of these Polynesian languages, but some amount of it is intelligible. So I think like Maori and Hawaiian are a little bit closer, or maybe Tahitian and Hawaiian are a little bit closer than like something Samoa is a little bit more distant. But it is kind of like you're finding another Romance language where there are terms that somebody would say in German or Spanish or something that might be, if you don't speak their language, they might be readily recognizable to you that this is what they're referring to, or this sounds a little bit like my word for that. So the grammar structure is really similar. We did a video on Hawaii. You can actually just switch to the ship painting now.
Oh, yes. Back to the
paintings. I'll talk a little bit about one of the crazy things of Polynesia. So you have
beautiful work.
Yeah, this is Joe's painting.
Felt like going on a tropical vacation doing that video.
Yeah.
Actually, just looking at that image, I'm sort of like getting sea sounds in my head, and it's like it's almost you look at it and it's there's sounds coming out of it. Just me.
Yeah, and I can also
You're just schizophrenic. It's okay.
I think so. Yeah, maybe just mentally ill. Don't worry about me.
Also the Kingdom of Tonga, a huge collection of islands that covers a ton of territory in Oceania around 900 AD, probably a little bit later. And through medieval times up until about 1500 AD, you have this empire called the Tonga Empire that is also in Polynesia. And I only mention that I haven't studied that in depth, but I only mention that to say it is kind of amazing that they were able to navigate to all of these different islands. You'd think these like scattered islands all across the Pacific. How is this possible? So a lot of this like deep navigation was done by star navigation. So if you're really pushing out into these different islands, how do you find your way back? How do you know exactly where an island is? So yeah, this is the Tonga Empire. It's a huge chunk of the Pacific.
I'd say massive landmass, but massive sea mass. It's
Yeah.
huge. So much of it.
I think in some ways people might say, okay, well, it's not really an empire because look, it's not on land. But in another way, it's actually more impressive that you have these scattered islands that you're able to continuously visit and keep up diplomatic relations with and fold them into your empire.
This place at the very bottom is crazy as well because it's quite far removed, isn't it?
Yeah. And so the Polynesian navigators, it's this ancient tradition of being able to navigate by the stars and what they would do. And it gets pretty complicated to where I'm like, even I don't understand how they're explaining it anymore. But basically fixing your position on a star so you know the position that you're traveling. But then when that star gets too high in the sky as you're traveling, you switch to another star and you follow that. And so in order to get to another island, you would memorize the stars that you need to get to that island. Okay, well, I need to follow this until this rises a little bit, and then I'll use this star. Maybe it's a 10-star step to find your way to this island. It still seems really difficult to do to where like you would just assume I would definitely die out there. So many people die out there.
100%, we'd all die.
Know how to do it.
It's this thing that's passed down one generation to the next. It's this ancient knowledge, esoteric knowledge, really, where it's like. But I suppose it's how somebody would prove themselves in a way. If you could prove yourself as an expert sailor, an expert navigator, you could be a leader of your people, sort of thing. People would follow you. Because who's going to get on a boat with someone who gets lost all the time?
Yeah.
I know they had other. They did use stars, but I remember reading about they would sometimes look into the patterns of different waves and swells in the water, knowing that the water would swell a certain way if there was a landmass nearby. So that was like another way to figure out like if we're close to land. And I think they would have specific birds that would refuse to land in water, and they would release them. And if they would fly back, then they would go, okay, yeah, so we don't have land within 2 miles of us.
Yes. Yes. Apparently Vikings would do similar things to this as well.
Yeah.
They were another great seafaring people. You'd have all these different methods, basically. And so you could try the stars, you could try the coastline, you could try the birds, you could just a few different things that you had in your
probably
arsenal.
had like plan A, B, C, D.
Yeah. So you try and keep calm and, like just rely on your tried and tested methods that your teacher had taught you, sort of thing, and then you'd have your apprentices on the boat with you teaching them the same thing. It's just this awesome amount of knowledge that we don't really appreciate in the modern age.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's so much that I wish we had accounts of. I wish I could see in real life. But we know that the Polynesians actually did reach South America probably around like 1100, 1200 AD.
Yeah, this blows my mind.
Pete from, I think it was Pete from Ancient Americas that did a pretty good video on recent evidence of contact. There's lots of material evidence, but there's actually even genetic evidence. I believe it's these Zenu people of Colombia, the indigenous people there, show some traces of this ancient Polynesian DNA, which gives you some sense that maybe these Polynesians knew where they were going. They could get there. Yeah. Apparently stayed long enough to, make some babies. And who knows if they went back? Who knows with the amount of distance they were able to cover. There's a conceivable history where Native Americans were joining these Polynesians to go see these far off islands. And I actually mentioned in our Inca video, there's an account, and this would probably be written down maybe 50, 60 years after it was supposed to have happened. But an account of the Inca, kind of the second emperor, Tupac Yupanqui, who is the great conqueror, conquered much for the Inca Empire to expand it, of visiting these far off islands and seeing these strange people in boats, and then coming back after like 9 months or something. And so there's people entertain this idea that maybe he did actually visit some Polynesian island, and there was this contact that we can't be sure about, but maybe something will come up. I'll have to find something else. There was something, and so that story is sometimes considered apocryphal by people. But there was something about him bringing back a relic that apparently was lost, but it was like a jawbone or something from like an animal that would only be there in Polynesia. So if they had it, you could date it to then. Maybe you could prove that he actually did have contact with Polynesians.
I seem to remember there's something about a sweet potato as well, isn't it? Didn't the sweet potato arrive in South America from Polynesia or something like this?
I think there's a theory around that.
Stefan Milo
there's also a theory.
Video.
There's the pre-Columbian chicken theory.
Right.
I think that's very controversial. Yeah, I don't know what the current status is on that, but there's some theory that they may have brought
America's
chickens.
video on it. He did a good one.
The point is, though, that there is at least some evidence. Whereas if we're looking at, I don't know, the Phoenicians coming to the New World, there's no evidence whatsoever. So with this Polynesian stuff, like, there is some evidence. As you said, there's some genetic evidence, which is like, you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that.
And some of the material goods that traveled, they would have, there was some plant that would be poisonous if you didn't prepare it right. And so the fact that Hawaii had it, or these Polynesians had it, but it comes from South America, maybe suggests that they learned how to cook it from South Americans. And then there were some other things that should sink in water, but they exist in Polynesia. So it probably didn't travel by ocean. It probably traveled on a boat. There's some medieval contact that predates Columbus between these people, and it's like, oh man, I would give anything. Give me some 4K footage of that.
Oh yeah,
I want to see what happened.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Polynesian history. I did a video on the Maori about 6 years ago now. I'd always wanted to revisit it. I will definitely do something more on Polynesians at some point. It's just such a romantic image of just going out into the unknown. There's something just really... just something I love about that. Just our ancient ancestors just going out into unknown, uncharted lands, exploring and traveling and colonizing.
And it requires like such an attunement to your surroundings and your environment.
Absolutely.
To know that the stars move this way, the clouds coalesce this way, it means this, or the sea turtle migration's doing this. So we don't think about that. That's not how we...
I mean, in medieval terms, that's reaching the moon,
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
I don't know.
Because these
so
are
much of the stuff that we cover...
distances.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so much of the stuff that we cover, like the ancient and medieval for you, I always love, and you can find this in a lot of contexts, but I think especially ancient and medieval stuff, you have two worlds meeting that's like these should not be meeting. These are two vastly different people, and what happens when they collide?
Absolutely.
What happens when this distant people has to grapple with the ideas or language or customs of another distant people? And that's what always gets me going. So the Polynesians are kind of that way. It's like you're explaining some vast cultural differences. Yeah, I don't know.
And then because there is the colliding worlds here thing as well, because Captain Cook arrives in whenever it is late 17 something, 1770s I think.
Yeah,
and it's
I think so.
Two completely different worlds. You know, he arrives in this area where they live in a completely different lifestyle, but even so, you know, he's quite impressed by these people. They're quite they have entire, you know, societies with kings and hierarchies, and the Europeans are quite impressed, but they of course force Christianity upon them.
Yeah. We watched the Chief of War show. Was also pretty good. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. I have not finished it, but I was enjoying it. Jason
We've
Momoa
got like two
just
more episodes left.
murdering
Broad
people.
strokes get some things correct. There are like some things that are played up for drama.
I'd say more than anything, it's just cool to see like big budget going into something that you would not expect to get a big budget. I wasn't expecting to be able to see a historically accurate Hawaiian, 18th century temple, but here it is.
Yeah,
literally my knowledge of the history of Hawaii comes from History Dose. So when I was watching that program, they're bigging up this guy. They're like, "Oh, this guy's a ledge," and I'm like, "It's going to be Kamehameha," and it was. It's Kamehameha.
Yeah.
And I said to
I actually rewatched our video. I was like,
Kamehameha.
Hold up, I got to remember the chronology of this. So I rewatched the History Dose video, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good.
So everybody check out History Dose on Hawaiian history, and it's super interesting. That's one of my favorite of your vids, actually. It's just proper atmospheric and something that I hadn't heard of. So yeah,
thank you.
Nice one.
All right, let's see what you got.
The great thing that the show does is, I mean, we could to some extent, but I mean, YouTube censorship and stuff, you can't go into the brutality of ripping someone's head off with a shark tooth blade.
Yeah.
But the show does a great job. I mean, a lot of the action's a little more like modern choreographed, but does a great job of showing like these people are going to war without armor on. They are, shirtless, and they have clubs. They have forgot the name of it, but that like broadsword that's just serrated with shark teeth, and you just know like. And if we're talking about the medieval era in Europe, you'd have chainmail, and then later on you'd have in the Middle Ages plate armor and stuff in the High Middle Ages. But so like when you're in battle, I mean, a lot of the hits might scathe off of you or something. But in this, it's like one hit and you're injured or you're completely out, and it just really shows the brutality of that warfare. It was probably like insane. Like when you clash, people are dying right away. There's I just hit you there and that
one hit,
off.
you're done.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, absolutely brutal.
I think it's called. See if you could like find an image of it. The Leomano, LeioMano. That's like the really sort of vicious Hawaiian weapon.
Yeah. Oh God! Whoa. Okay. Yeah. You wouldn't want to be hit by one of these. No, it's like, it reminds me of the obsidian blades as well in the Americas. So like it's a piece of wood with various bits of the sharpest substance known to man stuck out of it.
Yeah, this thing isn't just leaving a little slash or cut on you. No. It is designed to plunge into your muscle and your bones.
Like, oof.
I think the Aztecs have one similar to that with like obsidian serrating the outside.
Yeah. It's this kind of idea, but with obsidian around the outside, which is obviously terrible if you fighting against somebody wearing steel armor.
Yeah,
which they.
I just think there's something more badass about like it being shark teeth. I mean, like the person who has this at some point killed a shark.
Yes. Yes, yes. Or their ancestor did, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
got that extra power because it comes from the people who came before, and it's imbued with that.
Yeah, the whole
ancestral
mana
sort of
system with Hawaii,
vigor. Yeah.
harvesting the magic from someone's bones and stuff from a
Yes, yes.
a
I
war
enjoyed
chief
that
you kill.
in Chief of War when they're basically, they're after his
Yeah.
bones, aren't they?
Yeah, I like that they showed that
Intense.
because that's completely foreign to like a modern mindset, especially a
Yeah.
Western mindset.
Yeah.
It's like here we have you can relate to it on, you know, the whole idea of like kings, queens, politics, diplomacy, but then there's the I need to construct a house out of my enemy's bones to harvest the mana to be,
Exactly,
you know, a
yeah.
powerful ruler. And that stuff
there's
is
this-
just I love that. It's so otherworldly. It's very
Absolutely.
fantasy.
And there's the scene where his the baddie basically has taken Jason Momoa's father's bones and is sort of like defiling the bones of his
Yeah.
ancestor, and it
Yeah.
really hurts him because it's almost like he's being hurt because his bloodline is being defiled basically by the messing about with his dad's bones. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Makes me
always
think,
fond
like-
of shows too that are not afraid to show like the character has somewhat different morals or a different worldview than we have. So
Definitely.
they love, you know, people throughout history have acted on, you know, very earnestly on these spiritual beliefs that they held. And I think it's so easy for us to look back and say, well, what they were really after was power or money or status. And it's like, oftentimes that is a factor, but there is a real sense that we need to follow this guy because now he owns the head that has the incarnation of the war god in it. Like that's
Yeah.
a real consideration,
Yeah.
and I
Absolutely.
can fully understand today.
Absolutely. It makes me think.
All right,
of,
let's see what you got.
Just makes me think because all this stuff of the bones of the ancestors, blood of the ancestors being important, it makes me think that of ancient Europe as well, and like it probably wasn't that different, you know, in the ancient Iron Age Celtic world. It was probably kind of similar.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because they put this huge
You
emphasis.
study
on,
far and wide, and you just see some of these similarities. You go,
absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
what were, if you want to make generalizations, it's so easy to say, okay, well, what were Native Americans like? Which is as nonsensical as saying what were Europeans like or what were
100%.
Asians like in this century. It's like
100%.
it's such a massive, huge cultural diversity across these places.
Yeah.
But what you can say about them is actually Native Americans before Europeans and what they were like human beings, and so were
Yeah.
Europeans, and so were
Exactly.
you know,
exactly.
Africans and all that. It's a lot of times just the same stories playing out.
The more I study that around disparate peoples from different times around the world, the more I see the similarities between different groups, and it's nice to see that, you know, because we're all ultimately human. All right, here we are, Queen of Sheba, biblical person. In the Bible, she rocks up in Jerusalem to marry, I think, King Solomon. Maybe it's King David. She marries one of the Israelite kings, basically, in kind of like 8th century BC sort of time. And she's very wealthy. She's very powerful. She sort of arrives from a land to the south. And it was an archaeological mystery, basically. Like, where was the Queen of Sheba from? Where's this land of Sheba? And it was often considered to be a myth. It was considered to be just sort of like a story, basically, like without much basis in reality. Until in the 20th century, a lot of archaeology has been done in South Arabia, so what is now Yemen,
Wow.
particularly around this place, which is called Marib. And you look at it, it's like, what an awesome place that is. So interesting. And this is a modern city, you know, and they still live in these buildings, which are these ancient.
Are we
type
looking at like
buildings.
1000 BC here?
We are looking at, yes, pretty much. We're looking at second millennium BC going into the first millennium BC. So same kind of time as like the Assyrian Empire, that sort of thing, and the Israelites of the Bible. But this is South Arabia, so this is like, you know, you've got the empty quarter in between this is Yemen, basically, where not a lot of people know much about Yemen, but it is actually a very populous country. It's like, I don't know what the population is, but it's like 30 or 40 million people. Like, it's a lot of people in Yemen because it's quite lush. Areas of it are quite lush, quite green, lots of water there. But unfortunately, it's very war-torn at the moment. So in this area of which we call Saba now, there's an idea basically that the Queen of Sheba may have been from here. This may be Sheba. This might be this sort of once considered mythical kingdom. And it's a really interesting place. This is the Great Dam of Saba. So it's this huge dam. This is like modern, semi-modern, last few hundred years, I think, versions of it. But the original dam dates to, some people now think, possibly like 1250 BC. Insanely early, essentially. And when this dam is in its prime, it essentially creates this really lush, great area to have a kingdom. And it's this, at that point, sort of flourishing kingdom. Obviously, you know, pre-Abrahamic religions and all that stuff. So they're worshipping their own gods. They've got their own polytheistic faith, essentially. They've got their own pantheon and all this. And they have their own writing system. So this is the South Arabian script. And there's loads of it. It's all over the place, all over this land is this writing system. I think it's linked to the Semitic script, which is interesting. It's linked to like very early alphabets. It's got links to the Phoenician script and these kinds of things, which says
then has links to hieroglyphs.
Yeah, that there is kind of a genuine link between this area and the Levant, basically, to the north of it. So if you go up the Persian Gulf, you can make your way up to essentially like the Holy Land, basically, the south of the Holy Land. And what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so this is more of the landscape, basically. But yeah, unfortunately, the dam was then broken at some point, and life wasn't as flourishing anymore because the dam had been broken. The carefully maintained agriculture that was in the area couldn't be done at the same level, and the area kind of faded into obscurity a little bit on the sort of world history scale. You do have other kingdoms in this area before it becomes part of the Islamic world. So you have like the Himyarite kingdom here. They interact with Ethiopia in the Aksumite area. And it's just this whole fascinating series of kingdoms, sometimes empires, interacting with each other, politicking with each other. It's just like no one's heard of it. Has you heard of these guys?
What's
no.
in
the Sheba?
In the
Queen
Bible?
of Sheba,
Is it spelled out any political importance to the marriage?
What with the Queen of Sheba and the God, who is it? I'm going to absolutely
David?
butcher it. I think it's David. Is it David who marries? Sheba marries David. Well, what it suggests to me is that it's a memory of the importance of this land. I mean, maybe it was a real marriage. You know, maybe David was a real person. Maybe the Queen of Sheba was a real person. Who knows? But certainly, I think it speaks to some kind of diplomatic link, perhaps, between these two lands. Maybe they had a common enemy. Maybe it was just trade links.
It's like it might be Solomon, actually.
Maybe it is Solomon. Solomon was the famously rich guy who had Solomon's mines. This land, Yemen, it's got lots of frankincense and myrrh, which were sought after resources in the ancient world. So lots of importation of those things would happen into the Holy Land, which again is sort of remembered in the Bible. That's probably all I've got to say about that, really. I've not actually made a video on this yet. I've not done any serious research on it. It's just always something that I want to do.
No, you should.
And I just never get around to it because there's so many other topics.
There is a huge niche for, I mean, I don't watch it at all, but I see a lot of like videos that are like biblical archaeology that really blow up. So
I find it so
maybe that's an
interesting.
untapped niche for you.
Yeah, I find it so. I mean, I've dabbled. I've done a bit of biblical stuff, but I like to look.
And
at
I
it
think
just
David was
completely
the one where they
objectively,
was David the one where they found some inscription in the last couple of years that dates
Could
to
well
like
be.
800, 900 BC.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not 100% up to
familiar.
date.
Yeah, it seems to reference a King David in the right region.
I mean, this is the wild thing. Like, often you do find things in the archaeology that line up quite well with the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the
Yeah.
so that's going to kind of go maybe a decent transition to what I was going to talk about.
Sweet. Let's do it. Oh, I suppose
Let's
just real
go
quick.
to
I was just gonna. This is another one that I could show
Oh,
because
wow.
this is in Yemen, and it's just this like long before Islam. This ancient Arabian just world that's going on. Massive cities,
It
flourishing
almost looks
worlds.
kind of Hellenistic to
worlds.
me,
It does look a bit Hellenistic,
especially
this
with
one.
those columns there.
I don't think it is. I could be wrong, but I think these are just sort of independent because if you look at them, they're not actually. They're square.
Oh yeah.
They're quite
you're right.
different to
Cool.
Hellenistic columns. It's almost like a parallel development down here.
Yeah.
And that's why it really interests me because it is just its own thing. Did I have another one? I don't think I did. So let's go. Where are we going?
Hop back in the time machine. Turn on the flux capacitor.
I think I only gave you one Irish picture, but it's a decent,
Nice.
nice little
Classic,
medieval depiction that we made.
Ring forts.
Classic
Castles
transition
and
from the Queen of Sheba to Ireland.
yeah, easy segue.
Easy transition, of course.
Culturally similar.
Yeah, culturally similar. Similar levels of prosperity.
I think the Queen of Sheba's even in here. You have to zoom in. She's in here.
Yeah.
You know what's funny
There she
though is that these people probably were aware of the Queen of Sheba
Yes.
Yeah.
because they were Christian
Yes.
Irish people reading
Yes.
that book, which is just insane how these,
Yeah.
you know,
I suppose that is
all
the
this
interesting
information.
thing. Yeah,
At least
about
like the
this.
bishops and stuff would have been.
Yeah. Like this place lived on in the Bible, you know. and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's mad, isn't it? Taken to the very edge of the
Yeah.
earth. Ireland was
It's weird,
end
like
of the
a
earth for the Roman
obscure
Empire.
Semitic messianic cult just ends up taking over all of Europe.
Just wildly popular, wildly successful.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this was from a video that we made on the Irish versus Vikings. So that was the Brian Boru.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That's right around 1000 AD. You have Vikings. Vikings are actually the founders of Dublin. I believe there was like a smaller settlement at the time, but the people who really turned it into this port town are the Vikings. So the Vikings actually, to some extent, really kind of assimilate. And so a number of them are also Christian. Ireland begins to be Christianized probably in the 400s, 500s.
Similar time
and,
to the
I
Picts, really, but maybe possibly even
Yeah.
a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and I believe
yeah.
by around 800 AD, Ireland is fully Christian. And this is not like a foreign imposition or something. I mean,
Yeah.
to the extent that you're saying it's kind of traveling from powerful people, it probably is chiefs adopting Christianity
Yeah.
and having their people convert. But again, we always need to make some leeway. It's so easy to have our like skeptical modern lens and say, look, how did this culture change from this? There are people that make just genuine changes in culture. They find something appealing and something like that. But I think that's a good transition because, well, a number of these Norse that are coming over are actually still pagan. There's something to be said for how the Irish are in this period as well, which is they actually do have beliefs. This is not a world where there's a clean break between paganism and Christianity. You have these kind of regional myths and areas that you consider sacred. And a lot of times you don't even know why. So maybe before you thought there was a god inhabiting a hill, and now you believe there are spirits inhabiting a hill or something like that. So this is classic in the medieval era, probably at least since about 500 AD. Pretty much everybody in Ireland lived in these tiny little ring forts. They have like a little gate and a little ditch around it, some mounded up earth. You'd have your pen, you'd have your farmland, and then the more fortified ones are kind of nice stone constructions. You've been around Ireland, haven't you, Pete?
Yeah. These ring forts, there are thousands of them.
I don't know if you have any pictures of the stone ones. Those ones are cool too. We have the Joe's depiction here, but
I can show you one that I'm a big fan of, called Greenan. The Greenan of Islay.
Oh right, I was actually going to bring that up and tell you to Google
it's just a really,
if you got a pictures.
It's quite a neat
Greenan of Islay.
Quite a neat look to it. It's like
wow.
Yeah.
Kind of get the scale of that.
That's insane.
It's not my picture. But,
it's like an amphitheater.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is an elite residence, basically.
Yeah, but very defensible.
Yeah.
You have a lot of clan warfare at this time. Wow. So you have these families. That's beautiful. Yeah, and these were all over Ireland. I think there's like 50 or 60,000 remains of ring forts that they found.
Yeah.
So probably even more.
Yeah, there would have been more. Yeah.
Places we haven't gone digging. But you have this tradition in ancient Ireland, and I thought I saw a picture. Did you go to New Grange?
Yeah.
At all? If you have any pictures of that, that's amazing. Isn't that like 3000 BC or something?
It is. It's older than the pyramids.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which
it's completely amazing. New Grange, big fan. But New Grange is just one Neolithic site in the Boyne Valley, which is full of them. So you've got New Grange, you've got Knowth, you've got Dowth, and they're all kind of similar scale. Right? Yeah, massive passage tombs. Yeah. Covered in artwork as well. It's just insane. It's so bigger than anything else at the time period in Europe, really.
Yeah, so you have this ancient past in Ireland, and kind of what I wanted to talk about is how underrated so much of this is and how much of it persisted. So one of the places you might have been here, it's called the Hill of Tara.
Oh yeah.
And so
the continuation, I completely agree. We should say that New Grange and Knowth continued being in places of importance into the early medieval period, and people continued going there and doing like rites of initiation, basically. So kings would be initiated.
Yeah, and so the idea that stuff, names and places and traditions actually survive. And when somebody's writing 1,000 years later, 500 years later, how much of it can be true? Obviously, a lot of times it can be so much infused with legend, but I tend to think that a lot of times that there's a core of truth in a lot of these stories, that something did take place or something, this is referencing something. So in the 11th and 12th centuries, there are, and I think some other medieval kings lists that you get of Ireland, and they represent these high kings of Ireland, and some of them guess it's like 1500 BC is the first high king of Ireland, Slan Mac Dela.
1500 BC, yeah, it's quite a stab in the dark, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean that's 2,500 years, but again we also have like stuff like the ancient Egyptian kings list, like from Manetho, that end up being pretty accurate because we find the Narmer palette. Now maybe there's not a system of writing here, but I tend to think, so scholars will look back and they say, look, there probably was never anybody who exercised full control of Ireland until the medieval era, where you have Mael Shecknell and Brian Boru. But what this might have been is kind of a title. You're presuming to rule over all of Ireland, but maybe you hold a few sacred sites. And so now you say, I'm the High King of Ireland. And so even if we don't know their names, even if it's so far back, to me, it maybe is a genuine echo of something many centuries old of traditions, that there were very powerful kings in this land that united a bunch of tribes, or they ruled over these sacred areas. And so one of the ones, I think if you look at the Hill of Tara, it's like a little stone there too today, the Stone of Destiny. And what's so cool is that in our Viking Irish video, you have people trying to become the High King of Ireland. And so all these clans, they will a lot of times have like a sacred tree or sacred hill that they're guarding. But one of the ones that remains this very sacred area, even though, like Christianity has so much of an influence in this world, and like a bishop, if you have bishops on your side, that's really politically important to have them on your side, and taking these churches and stuff like that. But you want to get the Hill of Tara, because that symbolically says something to the people, that if I have the Hill of Tara, I believe it's like middle, kind of toward the east, central Ireland. But if you have that, it's like there's almost like this ancient understanding that, okay, this has been important for so long to so many of our forefathers, that this is what it means to be High King, and people understood that. And if you go to the site, just looking into it a little bit, apparently there are records or archaeological records of burials and ritual ceremonies happening past 3000 BC. And so it is insane that you have around 1000 AD, you have Brian Boru and these other kings fighting to take this place, so that you can signal, hey, that for 4,000 years, this has been a sacred like hill or something, and now it's mine. And this means that I'm the political leader. And it's like, I love these kind of trappings of power that you get. Okay, now in this new world, you need to signal that you're against the invaders, who are, a large part assimilated, but you're going to still cast them as invaders. You need to signal that you're a benevolent Christian king that patronizes the churches. You need to signal that you have the trappings of like kind of the old pagan Ireland, and you're an ancient king as well. And I love how all that comes together. It's such a unique flavor in Ireland.
Absolutely. It's worth noting that the Irish Christianized themselves. They weren't forcibly converted. Therefore, they were able to hold on to their old ways and their old sort of stories, because no one forced them to not do that. So these king lists, the ones that go back really, really, really far to like 1500 BC, as you were saying, maybe they are the real names, because people back then had incredibly good memories. If you were a bard, you were able to recall all these people going all the way back, because it was important. So, these long lists of kings, they may well have truth to them. They may well be the actual lists. And it's also worth noting that there's just so much writing at this time in Ireland, in the early Middle Ages in Ireland. So much writing is going on. Like, so many stories,
right?
The
detailed annals
are recorded, and that's really unusual for that time period. There isn't as much, like, the sheer amount of writing in Ireland, it dwarfs most other places, certainly in Europe at that time, certainly in England. I mean, there's like the amount of Anglo-Saxon chronicles you can basically count on one or two hands. In Ireland, they have like thousands of them.
Joe, what was the thing that you found? Was it an ancient Irish thing where they were referencing like fairies? That the
in what context?
I thought it might have been related to the Vikings or something.
There's a lot of stories about fairies.
Yeah, well, I know there's a lot of stories about fairies. I'm trying to remember the exact name they use, like the Al Shannai or something is what the Irish call it. I might be butchering that.
The Tuatha De Danann. They're like the
okay.
probably some sort of pantheon originally, and then they basically become the little folk, and they live inside burial mounds, basically.
I know
post-Chris... You might know about this as late as the 1500s, when the Irish basically are fighting against the Elizabethan invasion of Ireland. There's still this great respect for the little folk, basically, the Tuatha De Danann, to the point where Irish lords, Irish rulers, often will pick battle sites like at traditional places traditionally associated with the fairies, to try and get the power of this ancient Ireland behind them, kind of thing, the power of their ancestors, So it's still going on in the 1500s, big time.
I remember reading different theories post-Christianization with the Irish, because what happens whenever a place was Christianized, like sort of similar to like Scandinavia, when it became Christianized, it's like what happens to Odin and Freya and Loki. It's like they usually get appropriated as either archangels or demons or something. That's what they're spelt out to be. And I remember seeing stuff about the fairies. There were some who believed that they actually were either angelic beings, like actual angels, or they were the demoted angels after the fall, and you had some join Lucifer and some go with God, and maybe these were the ones with Lucifer. But I always found that like really interesting. It's like, how do you keep your old religion in a way, and it becomes folklore, it becomes folk beliefs, it becomes something about the burrows and the mounds and stuff. But we believe in Christ, but how can that fit into our new theology?
That's right. No, it's keeping the old stories alive and the old traditions, and they certainly did. They certainly did in Scandinavia and in Ireland, because these are both areas that kind of Christianized themselves. Really, it wasn't forced on them. They were able to adapt to this new sort of religion coming in from the south.
Yeah, I know. Like the Scandinavians were still leaving butter out on rocks for elves even after their Christianization. They still lived in that world, and I love seeing that period where there's like this. We're something new, but we're also something. We're still in our old world in a way. We're not 100%. Fully incorporated. Because I think there is. I would. This is such a lay perspective of mine. I haven't looked into it too much, but I think when it comes to European Christianity, by the time the medieval era, there's a bifurcation of the world into nature and supernature. There's the sacred and the profane, and I just remember when I was reading Neil Price's books on the Vikings, he really insisted that did not exist for the North Germanic tribes. Like there was no bifurcation. There was not the sacred and profane. There was the sacred. That's the world you live in. Is the heavily. It's the divine. It's the place where there are dwarves and elves on the shores.
100%.
And I would like to. I bet there's some anthropological stuff into that. Like, did Christianity introduce some idea that there is like an elevated realm, and then there's the fallen world, the one that operates by the laws of nature and stuff. I mean,
may well have done. Certainly, I've heard this distinction between the sacred and the arcane being criticised in the context of Göbekli Tepe, actually, in the context of sort of pre-pottery Neolithic, going as far back as that sort of 10th millennium BC. The idea,
I think some of it also comes like Galileo.
Yeah, there's a lot of Enlightenment.
Yeah, that you have
Enlightenment. Yeah.
You have the mechanical world that goes by itself, and then you could have your separate spiritual realm.
Yes.
I know the Protestant Reformation, there was a campaign of sort of debunking Catholic miracles as well. So there'd be like, they say this saint or whatever was glowing or she levitated, and then the Protestant rebuttal would be to try to go in and figure out, can we explain this in a more natural way, and if not, demons. And so
pretty much.
I think there is like some of that going into the modern world. Maybe that led to some secularization around these things. But man, I just love like I don't know, throw me back into, pre-Christian Ireland. I love that type of world where
Yeah.
everything's just suffused with the divine and the meaningful and stuff.
You'd go back there, I'd go back there, we'd be like, this is great, and then we'd be sacrificed.
Yeah.
Thrown into a bog. Yeah.
That's why I love like
smacked on the head and chucked in a bog.
I love like The Witcher is like one of my favorite games is The Witcher 3. It's just I love that world so much where you just have this guy going and cutting up monsters and curses are real. Like you could hit your wife and then your child turns into a demon or something like that.
Well, that is the world that is the pre-modern world, really. You know, people believed in magic, people believed in monsters, dragons were real. They were just over the next hill.
And that's what I was actually talking with Joe. I was talking with Joe recently about this will be my last tangent, then I'll let you get to your next civilization.
It's fine.
But there's kind of an instinct I feel like in modern fantasy and some sci-fi. I mean, you kind of see this evolution in Star Wars as well, with the original trilogy. You have more of these concepts of like fate and archetypes, and you're content to believe in that there's a fate, that you should face your evil father, you should take down these people. And then more and more in the prequel trilogy, you have like midichlorians. Okay, we are so easy, or we're so ready to sort of break things down and figure out how they work. Okay, well, if you have the Force, how does it work? Is it a genetically inherited thing? And I think people do that with modern fantasy as well sometimes. We're kind of like looking, which spell beats which spell, which
hard versus
is
soft magic. Yeah.
What's the way to do this? What's the whole system? How do I categorize it? And it's like, you look at something like Lord of the Rings and it's very different, where some of the questions of you trying to probe and trying to make sense of all the lore and what curse works, or would this guy beat that guy, kind of doesn't apply there, because it's a very legendary story. And that's how people viewed things. That I don't need to have a fully articulated way of how this character became evil. This character became cursed because he acted evil. Yeah. Right. And that's it. There doesn't need to be a secondary mechanism. And that was satisfying to people back then. And that's, I always find that interesting, living in those sorts of worlds when you're studying them.
Definitely. There's it's good and evil, Evil is evil. Good is good. It's none of this grey area like
it's just comfy
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is like really good, but it's all these, moralistic, like it's very modern, isn't it? It's very modern.
The one thing, the one sin that for all of its like analogs to ancient and medieval culture, the one big sin that Game of Thrones does that's ahistorical, and I mean it's not a historical show, but is the fact that all your nobles and your royalty are in effect modern day seculars. Like none of them are, paying tribute to shrines or actually believe in the gods or pray. They look down on that as like that's with disdain. That's what the common folk believe. Where in actuality, these kings and stuff took this stuff seriously. They would say a mass before battle and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Religion was everything. Yeah, I mean, particularly, European monarchs, for example, they were put in place by God, so they were very respectful of their God, because they were God-given kings. They had the God-given right to rule. So, by and large, they would be very respectful to the church.
And you can
pay a lot of money to the church as well.
There's lots of There's lots of rulers who do things that would not be advisable unless you were an earnest believer. Yes. There's accounts of Mongols calling sieges off or battles off that would have been the right time to attack, but an astrologer told them that there's a dark omen, you shouldn't attack. And it's like, people took it seriously.
Big time. Yeah.
All right, let's see what you got.
Let's get back in the time machine.
So we're going to go somewhere, and we can speculate, just wildly speculate on what these guys did for religion. So we're going back to Iran. We're going back to ancient Iran. We're going to look at the neighbours of the Helmand culture. So you may have heard of these guys. You may not. This is the Jiroft culture. So We'll have a look at a map.
I have not heard of them.
We have ancient Mesopotamia. So we have the Akkadian Empire thrives. Then the Empire comes after the Akkadian Empire at the end of the 3rd millennium BC. At that time, does lots of writing. So there's lots of cuneiform tablets that are found here. They speak of trade with loads of other places down to the south of them, in the Persian Gulf. So you have Dilmun down here, Magan here, and Malua, which most experts think is the Indus Valley civilization, basically. And the Indus Valley civilization is this huge, absolutely just epic place. Actually dwarfs Mesopotamia in size.
Wow.
And then you have the people in between. So what's happening in Iran at that time period? Well, it's a mysterious place. Here we are, actually. Shari Sokta and Mundigak are up here, who I mentioned earlier. And even to the north, there's another prosperous place, the Oxus civilization, basically, up here on the edge of Central Asia. Loads of stuff going on there as well. Big cities and just great artwork and metallurgy and all this going on. And trade, they're all trading with each other. All these places are trading with each other. But in Iran, up until very recently, it's been kind of this blank spot on the map. Very little has been known about it for various reasons. Hard to do archaeology there. And there's just so much archaeology there. So like the later Persian empires would get the funding, basically. But in this area of Jiroft, only in the 1990s, I believe, just vast amounts of artifacts began turning up on the black market, and they look kind of like this. Wow. So absolutely loads of them like this, and they're made of they're like chlorite and diorite vessels, which is hard.
So
stone,
what year
basically.
is this again?
This is the 3rd millennium BC. So
wow,
4,500 years ago. Yeah, this is Old
okay.
Kingdom Egypt.
Yeah.
So same time as Old Kingdom Egypt. And Old Kingdom Egypt is kind of like the western edge of this big trade network sort of thing that's going on. And this is towards the east of this trade network. The Indus Valley civilization is at the eastern edge. Old Kingdom Egypt is at the western edge. These guys are kind of like middlemen, is what it seems like, in the middle. And it's where a lot of items, basically trade items, have originated here, and they've ended up at these other places. So it's a big linked up world, and this is right in the middle of it. And unsurprisingly, quite a few ancient cities have now been discovered. This is one of them. Terrible picture. This is one. I think this is Konar Sandal.
It's crazy.
Again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciations, but to me it looks like Konar Sandal, but it's probably pronounced differently. But yeah, it's like big central mound, it's kind of like a ziggurat, surrounded by urban planned.
I assumed that was a
city,
natural
basically.
Formation at first.
No,
Yeah, me too.
that's a pyramid, basically. It's like a ziggurat. So central sort of temple of this city. This is another thing, another artifact from the Jiroft civilization, the Jiroft culture.
Do we know much about what they're depicting here, or is it kind of guesswork as far as
I'm sure
what the
somebody's
significance is?
I'm sure someone's had a good go at saying what it is. I know that their artwork, interestingly, it depicts a lot of vegetation, which I think is really cool. So it's like loads of trees and flowers and plants. So maybe they were quite interested in sort of keeping things fertile, because sadly it probably ended at the end of the 3rd millennium BC because of like desertification, this kind of thing, and just not being enough water, not being enough food because of the sort of arid nature of the land. and then it sort of dies out over here. What else did I have to show you? Oh yeah, here we go. This is a cool one. Yeah, these horned figures show up a lot of the time. I don't know what's going on here.
So do we have much writing from them, or do we know their system of writing?
There's a script, but it's completely undeciphered. No one even knows where to begin.
Huh.
So it's one of those ones. It's one of these.
That's some of the stuff that I'm like, if there's any decent use for AI, just help us crack the code and then leave us alone.
I'm so with you. Yeah, I hope somebody is using AI for good. AI is great if it's used for something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, give me the medical advancements and help me read
100%.
Minoan. And
100%. Let's cure cancer. Let's decipher ancient scripts. Here we go. Jiroft culture inscriptions.
Wow.
So yeah, like it's weird stuff.
Very
like, it doesn't look like anything else.
Yeah, I was gonna say this looks like something you see in like a class trying to teach shapes to children or something.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Almost just
but
almost.
They seem
you
to
wonder
have
if it's
meanings.
mnemonic or something. Like it's a cipher where if you knew ahead of time what each circle or triangle meant, those groups might mean something, because there doesn't seem to be enough variation in the symbols. There's not many letters.
Maybe it's a record of quantities or something. It could be that was like ancient early.
Imagine we
pre-dynastic
the code
Egyptians
right now.
That's what they're writing.
Imagine. I think I've just
That's
realised
the rest
that
of the stream.
I think all of the people I've talked about have undeciphered scripts. That's fun. That's clearly a thing that I like. That's
you don't get as much information with yours. You're like, hey, what was the first king's name? It's like triangle circle.
Yeah, exactly. the mighty king, triangle circle. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so there's some issues with the Jiroft, unfortunately, because all this stuff essentially turned up on the black market, and it just like vast amounts of it just appeared, basically flooding the black market. It suggests there's been like a lot of looting, basically, which is a shame. And there's a lot of looting still going on now, and it's quite a controversial area as well. I think there's some archaeologists who have suggested that some of this could be forgeries. They think that it's not real, and there's kind of like one of these battles within archaeology about the Jiroft culture. So yeah, I encourage everybody to go and look into it, because it's a super interesting story, and I hope that we have more developments in the future in this area. It doesn't look like it's faked to me.
Oh, I would just assume, that's legit.
Yeah, but there's skepticism, so it's worth noting. There's skepticism. I think skepticism about the script. I think because it's one of these things where if it just turns up and there's no context, there's no provenance of where it's come from, basically, and you can't say this was found in that pit over there.
Yeah.
A lot of archaeologists are skeptical, so yeah. But I don't know what you can do about that if it's been looted. Like, what are you supposed to do? Yeah.
We gotta stop looting.
Well, it's just, yeah.
That's why they won't let you back in Peru.
Exactly. I mean, these are the ones that I found.
You could have just shown me the portrait vessels that are on your shelf that you stole.
Do I have any, mate? No. I think maybe that's it. Don't know what else I was going to say about the Jiroft. I'm sure I'll remember as you're talking about your thing. I suppose these are such vast areas that I look at this map and I think, look at how dense things are in Mesopotamia. Yeah. That's barely any of the, there's hundreds of cities there that we know of. And I look at Iran and I'm like, there's definitely more out there. There's definitely more out there. And that's
like the Amazon rainforest. Yeah. You could probably find a whole city somewhere with highways and stuff.
100%. Yeah. It's one of these areas where it's just what we're going to learn in the next century gets me very excited. I like it. That's
Right.
that's why I keep doing this stuff, you know. That's why I keep doing this stuff. It's the prospect of future discoveries.
Yeah, actually, so a little teaser just for the people who tuned into this live stream. We did a two-parter on the Incas, the rise and then the fall of the Incas, and there was actually some quotes and stuff that we were going to put into. Each one of those was almost about a half hour each, and then we added a few more minutes. So it should come out later this week. We'll put them together, and then there's some bonus scenes and some cool quotes in that. So it's going to be our first 1 hour video, which is complete. It's like nothing. It doesn't hold a candle to Pete's 7 hour epics, but it's the biggest thing we've created.
Yeah.
But
new
one of the
paintings,
interesting
too.
things, there actually is a tiny new detail that I added in because a study came out like a couple months ago on the Quipus, which was the system of
I love
cords
Quipus.
with little knots that Incas and Andeans could use to record information. And it was probably somewhat mnemonic, where you would need to know the context of the message before understanding it. But once you knew that, it could encode information like how many people live in this village as opposed to that village, or entire royal histories and king lists and what happened. So one of the things I mentioned, it's just a tiny tweak to the script, but it shows you how much of this stuff is evolving. They recently found a Quipu, and it had hair in it. And the hair, when they tested it, was not somebody who had an especially elite diet. I think it was like low on meat consumption, and it was like very plain. And so what they believe is that this could have been a commoner's Quipu. So rather than just the royals or a learned class of scholars knowing how to transmit information, commoners might also have known how to use Quipus and communicated that way. So
Wow.
I added in a little aside, like a learned
That's
class and perhaps some commoners use Quipus to encode information and all that. So
Yeah, I suppose if you... I'm just thinking like a tavern owner who could keep tabs on who owes what.
yeah.
Gotta
The
collect.
chicha tavern
Yeah,
owner.
like who's had what chicha, right? You've had 3 chichas, right? You know, I don't know, I mean, maybe it's
People
much
don't know what
more
chicha
complicated
is.
than that,
It's I believe it's corn chewed
Corn.
up, spit out with saliva, and then the saliva gives you your nice liquid, and then it ferments, and you drink that.
but and it's...
so-
It's
Saliva,
illegal
corn,
in
beer.
Peru now. The traditional chicha is
For
illegal.
sanitary
But
Oh, is it?
reasons.
yeah,
I imagine
some
it's very
well,
strong.
you can get chicha, but it's like more manufactured. But like the traditional way of making it by regurgitating it out of your mouth is illegal because of hygiene.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing some video of some tourists trying to find a way to get it, and they found a remote area in the Andes.
Yeah, some village.
And
made
it showed some like woman there, and they were just chewing corn, spitting, and he had some, and he just gagged. He's like, it tastes like saliva.
yeah.
It tastes like old saliva and corn.
Oh, God, that's because it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
should I move on to my last one? So this will be number 9 of the Forgotten Worlds.
The 9th world. Right, we've landed. Where have we landed?
Okay.
Oh, I know where we've landed.
You start with. Can you do the one with the boat? Yeah, there
This
we go.
one? Yeah.
Yep. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is one of Joe's depictions that he made for our Tlingit one. This is actually supposed to be a bit pre-contact, or not necessarily pre-contact, but pre-sustained contact with Europeans. So they have a bit less access to metal tools. So the totems aren't quite the towering
Smaller.
ones that you would see, but you have these beautiful painted houses in these villages of sometimes thousands of people,
Yeah.
all under one chief. So I kind of want to talk about where this was, what culture I'm talking about. This is the Pacific Northwest cultures, but specifically kind of centered around Southeast Alaska. And then if you go down a little bit, it becomes Canada. So you have Haida Gwaii in some of that area of the coast. These are the Tlingit, which actually starts with a T, Tlingit. The Tlingit, the Haida, and the Tsimshian. These are three very strongly interrelated cultures.
Gunshots going on or cannonball?
Yeah, I feel like
something's happening here. It's fireworks.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can. I was concerned at first.
Yeah, I'm under attack.
These are huge Tlingit haters or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The locals are coming to
stop spreading this knowledge.
Where I am. Yeah.
So these are some amazing cultures. They develop sort of a warrior culture as well, but they have this, I guess, if you look at the development of a lot of these cultures, when you start seeing these monuments and great structures and artistic developments, it's oftentimes when you've taken care of a lot of the subsistence living needs. And specifically, actually, when you can stockpile food, that is a huge advantage. And so it isn't just agriculture, although often it is agriculture.
Are these agriculturalists?
No, but I'll give an example of one kind of agriculture that tended to not really work that well for the development of these big, huge urban centers is actually Australian Aboriginals. I believe they had bananas or plantains, and they had like mass agriculture there. But those are really hard to store. I mean, you can store them for a couple of weeks and then they go brown. So you can't really have a huge stockpile of goods to go focus on something else. This is a constant thing that you need to do. If you have something like wheat, that's great.
Egypt's on the opposite end where it was like farming along the Nile, and they built massive granaries where they could store food for 5 years before it rots.
And so the Incas did the same. The Incas had potatoes, and they invented freeze drying the potatoes, where they completely dehydrate them, break them up, and then leave them outside in these I believe it was called chunyo. And so like these little bits of potato could be stored for months and months, and then they would do the same thing with meat. So if it was like llama or alpaca meat, you could save that. You could dry it out in the sun in the nice dry Andean air. And they called it cha'arki, which is why we have the word jerky today. Actually comes from Quechua, the Inca
that is awesome.
lingua franca.
Awesome.
So those are examples of foods that you can store so that you can kind of develop. You have these big storehouses, and it also helps whoever ends up being in power. If you have the food supplies, you're pretty much golden. You become very popular. So what happens in the Pacific Northwest actually is not agriculture. It is an extreme abundance of seafood. So,
oh wow, okay, yeah.
So what they do, you can see in the back of this image what I've requested that Joe paint. Those little racks of salmon.
They're drying them out. Yeah.
Yeah, so they would dry them out, they would smoke them, and then you could have these massive stockpiles of salmon. So during the spring you would leave, and you would go to a summer encampment where some of the village would go, and this would be just called a fishing camp. And there was so much salmon, you could just get tons and tons of it. It's not an overpopulated area. And then you could also get other fish. Then they would take the fish oil. A lot of times they would dip the fish in the fish oil. It was super calorie dense. They could get crabs, mollusks. And then on top of that, just for good measure, you can hunt deer, seals, porpoises, sometimes whales. And so this is tons of super calorie dense food that you can figure out a way to stockpile. And now you are set for the winter. Your Alaskan winter is not that bad because you have tons of stockpiles of food, and that's where
nice
you get
warm lodge. Yeah.
now you can focus on things like developing these massive longhouses. So if you go to that other painting that I shared that we made is a Tlingit. Now I'm saying Tlingit, but a lot of times if you're looking at like the other two tribes that I mentioned, the Haida and Tsimshian, it virtually looks identical. Sometimes we'll have slightly different icons, but actually the same. It's virtually the same gods and the same animals and the same social divisions. But could you switch it to the interior of the lodge painting, Pete?
Yes. My mouse has died, I think. 1 second.
It's the fireworks.
I think so. Technical difficulties. You guys talk.
Yeah. Anyway, this is this very developed world. And so you have this surplus of food that allows sort of social stratification, where you have these chiefs, but they also, nice way, get that they rely on social validation. So it isn't quite democratic, but part of the way that you legitimize yourself as chief is to get these luxury goods. So like these beautiful robes and like traced with puffin beaks, and a lot of times these copper plates. So like you could dig copper on the mainland and beat it into these shields. And so they would trade for those or go collect some of those, and those were really sacred objects. And so your ability to sustain your own people or to give gifts to your followers was one of the ways that you legitimized yourself as a ruler. Oh, actually, the one inside the lodge. The fiery one.
Yes. This is a lovely picture. Look at that.
Yeah, so these are the really beautiful longhouses that they had. You can see kind of like the suggestion of these like totem poles on the side with these icons. And you could have your chief and your priest there. And you have these different families. Definitely the people that would sleep in the lodge closest to the chief were the higher up. And then the people who slept on the coldest parts or near the door with the animals would be the slaves. So they would take slaves as prisoners of war and could even engage in like a sort of a minor slave trade. It wasn't that you had thousands of these slaves, but you would have some portion of your society, very similar to the Vikings, that were kind of like a thrall class. So in their longhouses, you can look up recreations of them. This is, we put a lot of effort into getting these right. So you can actually see on the upper right on the ceiling. Remember, Joe and I were like confused why some of these depictions, when we look back through like reconstructions, there's like a little fan opening. It's actually a smoke hole that'd be on one side. Yeah. And that's right over. And then you kind of have like, I don't know, in some ways it looks like certain of like those Japanese houses where you have like different levels. You have these different levels leading down to the central fire.
Oh, I yeah, like a sunken sort of bit in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
this is cool. I like the pageantry of the dressing up in the masks.
Yeah.
And,
so that, I believe what we're intending to depict here is a priest with the raven mask. So Hail or Yel was the chief god of the Tlingits. It would have been shared with the groups as well. But he was like a creator god, but he's kind of also sometimes a trickster. So sometimes you could blame things that went wrong on him. But at the same time, you kind of have this idea that is present in a lot of religions. This is with the Inca religion, and maybe to some extent, and this would be like sort of an independent thing, but in the Abrahamic or Christian religion, where you have kind of like a logos and knowledge being infused in the world by your God. And so the world is kind of rational, and knowledge can come into the world because of the deity. So you might have had for the Tlingits, you might have had a formless world beforehand, and what makes it a rational, discoverable place for humans is this god.
Carl in the chat's pointing out the similarities to Norse culture. I mean, they also do, the Tlingit have their own raven clan and stuff. I mean, it is very, like, Norse culture was very, totemic in a very similar way. Having, like, you could carry the spirit of an animal within your family line.
Probably inside a Norse temple in 5th century AD or something. It wouldn't look too different to this.
Yeah, so there are some similarities, and actually Viking leaders tended to, wasn't so much gift giving, but it was your ability as a commander to get your followers loot and plunder.
Oh yeah.
Kind of legitimize yourself. So among all these three peoples, the Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian, you have these two divisions of societies. So people would live together, and it's matrilineal. So your chiefs are still male, but matrilineal kinship in the sense that whatever your mother was is what determines whether you're a raven or eagle, sometimes called wolf division. So you fall into those camps, and who knows how this developed? Maybe this was, maybe there's some level of kind of like natural or artificial selection, but it is good genetically. Those were the divisions are called moieties. And so you can only marry somebody outside of it. So if you are Eagle Clan, if your mother was Eagle Clan, then you need to marry someone who is of your tribe, but of the Raven Clan, and vice versa.
So cut down on incest.
And then, I guess another similarity. Yeah, another similarity. So sometimes the Haida actually were called by some scholars, like the Vikings of North America. And
I've seen this.
You can kind of see why. So if you can go to the warrior depiction that we see.
So these three different peoples that you're speaking of, what are the main differences between them?
So there aren't massive, I wouldn't say that there are massive differences. There are linguistic differences, and those kind of evolved over time.
So it's just the geographical distance.
Yeah, and there's also, so they are in the same place, but we even know of certain, so they have different languages, but a very similar culture and similar languages. But there are islands too that, like, there's an island south of where the Tlingit domain is. It actually is part of the Tlingit domain, but it looks like it should be part of the Haida domain. And basically, the name of the island, you can tell by the name of the villages that it belonged to the other people at some point. So it was a conquest between these people. So there are some linguistic differences, but a lot of cultural affinity. And these are separate kind of like regional powers in this region. So if you zoom in on the guy on the left, this is probably like a classic warrior, classic lightly armed warrior. You have a top knot. They often would have
front sheath dagger in the chest.
Have a dagger. I think they tended to shoot almost sideways too, which is what I'm trying to have Joe depict here. And then the guy in the middle is the classic Pacific Northwest warrior. They look really, really cool. So this
that is awesome.
It's almost like a Boba Fett vibe. So you have these like really like elaborate wooden helmets that would have different icons or imagery on them, and then you'd have what would be like a cuirass of wood and seal hide, and then you could layer that with like elk hide and other skins, and so you're really well protected there. And
allegedly stopped some musket fire too from the Russians.
Yeah, according to the Russians, that their musket fires were not penetrating these like I guess like really thick with could be seal hide and multiple slats of wood all around the body. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be that surprised if it could kind of deflect a bullet or
so it would stop an arrow, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I think it would stop an arrow. You'd probably stop a certainly like a getting hit by a sword, I suppose. Maybe
That
not
was
a
something
direct
Chris and I
stab,
were wondering about. Was why did the Pacific Northwest develop these outfits of armor as opposed to when you look at like the Plains Indians or something? And I think a lot of it has to do with kind of the raiding culture. So if you're attacking from the sea, you're coming in on your war canoe, you could expect that, people are going to see you coming, they're going to start firing at you right away, they're going to meet you on the shoreline. So it's like there might have been some practicality in saying like, okay, well, if we're coming from the shoreline, we're fighting an uphill battle, we probably need to be wearing something to help deflect stones and arrows and stuff that might come our way. But
yeah, and I think some of the bigger
it's also very cold. Maybe they liked the layers.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, but I think that protection too, you can also see the woodworking that they have, and there are like veritable wooden fortresses in this area. You have like an island, you have all these scattered different islands. So imagine trying to make a land on shore and you're trying to assault some massive wooden fortress. You're going to want something. You want something to deflect the arrows that are coming at you. And then curiously, so they did use stone weapons, but what I've shown it right here is actually iron. Me and Joe.
The dagger.
An iron dagger, and they'd wear it around their neck like that, and you take it out of the sheath. But one of the really fascinating things is, so the Russians are the ones that end up colonizing Alaska, and they kind of make contact in the 1740s. That's why we have the Bering Strait, Vitus Bering, sailing for Russia. But actually, it was probably in the 16th century that Spanish made contact with these people. So the Spanish, of course, had the Philippines, and they're sailing up. One of the Spanish ships, I think, was called the Lima or something like that. It was like the something Inca named, like some Peruvian name, and they were sailing up the coast, and they made contact with these people, and they described them. And one of the things that the Spanish note, and later the Russians, is that it seems like the Tlingits and these other people are really eager to get metal. In other words, they know what it is. They don't need to have been, like mowed down in combat to understand why iron is important or steel is important. And so some of the idea is it's believed by some people that basically there's some oral traditions and there might be some archaeological evidence to suggest that Chinese and Japanese shipwrecks washed up on shores like the sort of Aleutian Island chain and Alaskan shores. And there's some like traditions that talk about stripping down these ships that would wash ashore, presumably pre-European contact, and taking the nails out and using that metal. And so they might have had these small quantities of iron that they were salvaging from Asian shipwrecks, which is just insane. I mean, you're using like Chinese metal to fight these people. Yeah. And then so if you scroll to the right, this is somebody like post-European contact, where they are taking, actually funny enough, these are a lot of times
scale mail here.
Yeah, so a lot of times they have these American-made muskets. So the Russians don't want them to get guns because that's such a threat to their power. But the Tlingits are trading with these Americans that are coming up, and the Americans don't care. They're just, if you want them, and you give us sea otter pelts, you got them. We'll smuggle guns to you. But the coolest thing, and you can Google this also, his breastplate or cuirass or vest is actually lined with Chinese coins. So this was it added a layer of protection. But if you look up like Tlingit or Haida Chinese coin armor, this is something that they started to use probably sometimes ceremonially, but it could be also for battle. But as the sea otter trade was traveling from like with these Europeans, and a lot of these pelts were being sold in China. One of the goods that were coming back were Chinese coins, and the Tlingits in Haida tended to really like them. And they might have also had some of these coins pre-European contact from these shipwrecks.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so you can see we have record. These are, so I love this kind of stuff. I mean, you have Native Americans or Native Alaskans fighting Russians using Chinese coin armor and American guns. And I'm like,
yeah, it's crazy.
That's exactly why I love history.
That is amazing. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm getting an insight into what really makes you tick. It is the colliding worlds, isn't it? It's these seemingly disparate things that come together.
Yeah, it's like the crossover events in history.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's like if I think the thing that makes us go a little wild is like if the Millennium Falcon crashed in the middle of Gondor. That's like the type of thing. It's just these two things are not supposed to be together, but now they are. What's going to happen next?
Definitely. Yeah. Interesting. I do like that. But I like to look at, I don't know, what's the most obscure world in the Star Wars universe? That's what I want to look at. And I want to look at going to Middle Earth and just have an intricate look at the men of Dunland. Like one of these just side people who no one ever thinks of. Focus on them.
Find Tolkien's like really obscure notes that were translated by his grandson or something.
There's a group of people in Tolkien's world called the Pukul Men, and when the men of Rohan are going to the siege of Minas Tirith, they get directed through the woods by these like ancient prehistoric Middle-earth dwellers, and Tolkien doesn't really explain it, and it's just like, yeah, these are the Pukul Men. Anyway, moving on. And it's just, I love
that stuff. Like Tom Bombadil coming in.
Oh,
we don't want to. There's no explanation for this. It's just.
I love Tom Bombadil. Yeah. Just I like the really obscure bits where you only get a tiny snippet, and you just see the tip of the iceberg, and you think, right, what's the rest of this story?
Yeah.
Let's try and think about what happened the rest of the time to these people. Yeah.
So I'm glad I was able to give you I feel like the Gupta in the Pacific Northwest, maybe I added something new to your interest that
you did.
And hopefully the viewers
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Jump down a rabbit hole and see how cool these civilizations are.
Yeah, both of those guys, yeah. Particularly this stuff. I love this stuff. Because it's really to think that these guys were using armor and muskets. It's just you wouldn't necessarily think that was going on.
Yeah.
No, they almost form their own sort of knightly uniforms in a way. With that slatted armor and the helmets.
The Russians ended up going all the way down to California, and they set up a base or a fort, a trading post that's called Fort Ross. They actually have a recreation of it you can visit today. Right on the coast. I think it's a little bit north of San Francisco. So we don't normally think of like Russian America on the mainland, but there was Russians in California interacting with Mexicans and indigenous people and Americans, Anglos and all that stuff. But part of the reason that they continued on was that because they kept running into these people, like the Tlingit and Haida, that were like so hostile and so hostile when they were kind of being forced into these trade arrangements or they were overhunting in their waters. And so it was one of the considerations. And, there's kind of a nice story behind it in that the Tlingits end up getting a treaty that respects their sovereignty from the Russians. And it's, in part just sort of a practical concession, but it disallows any of the Russian fur traders from demanding tribute from these people or subjecting them to taxes. And it's like, okay, leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. Let us hunt a little bit. And it's just kind of a cool story. I mean, they got American guns and Chinese coins and wooden armor. And it's just a pretty sweet world.
Everyone, you've just done a video on this, haven't you?
Yeah, it's just called the Russian versus Native American War.
Yeah, everybody watch it. Yeah. All right.
And I, probably by far the most common comment we've gotten on that. And there's our thumbnail.
There's a thumbnail that got us a lot of views. People like impending violence thumbnails.
But the
you guys carry on talking just for 1 minute.
comment.
I've just got to go and get a little charging thing for this this mouse. So
I'd say
unprepared.
one of the more
Back in a moment.
One of the more common comments we've gotten on this is just, can't believe I've never heard of this. Or I've lived in Canada all my life and I never knew about this. And so yeah, you guys should go study up Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian. All those groups in that same area are really fascinating, but specifically as we're focusing on these people, it is a really cool culture. It does have some similarities to the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large emphasis on raiding. But they weren't only raiding each other. Wars could break out, or you conduct raids for loot or plunder. But at the same time, you could they did have these trade links. So there are certain things that you can get on these islands that you can't get on the mainland, and vice versa. So they would go inland and trade with indigenous groups along the coast. They tended to think that the inland groups were very uncivilized. So these are the built-up Tlingit, Haida, Tsimshian, and so they actually have these like civilized notions of themselves, and they see these uncivilized peoples living in the hinterland. So there are accounts of raiding deep into there, but a lot of times they were trading. Like they want antlers, or they want bear skins or something like that. Certain like mountain goat horns they also liked. These things that are pretty rare that you could get and just have a display of status. And then actually the group, the Haida, were probably the best out of making the huge war canoes out of all those groups. And so the Tlingits would actually, throughout the year, I think after their fishing season, would travel south and conduct trading expeditions. And a lot of times would just straight up purchase boats from the Haida. They're like, yeah, these are the best. I'll take yours.
Interesting. This is a Russian guy at the bottom, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not having a very good
fur
day.
trader.
He's not having a great day. Yeah. There's a really good story called Lost Face by Jack London. I don't know if either of you have heard of this.
No.
It's set in, when's it set? Late 1800s. So kind of similar time to this. And it's about a band of Russians. And it's a short story. And I highly recommend it to everybody. It's like short story, but really good and really just brutal. Because it was brutal
Sounds
time.
fun.
Yeah, it was brutal time.
All right, let's
I
get
won't
on
reveal
to Civilization
too much about
number
the
10.
story, but you should all watch it. Yeah. So mine's going to be a bit of a letdown
Finale.
probably, but we'll finish on the people who I think don't get enough of a mention, because we're going to look at the Sassanid Persians briefly. Most people, I think, know of the Achaemenid Persians, who are the guys who fought against the Greeks in the Battle of Thermopylae, which is the one in 300, the film. But later, after them, the Sassanid Persians had almost as big of an empire. Not quite as big, but almost. And this was it. This was the empire of the Sassanid Persians. So these are the same guys who basically fought against the late Roman Empire and were then conquered by the Arabs. So the Arabs came this sort of blank space here in the 7th century, and they conquered this entire empire. And then the Arabs basically inherited loads of the sort of systems that the Sassanids had put in place, and they kind of like inherited their empire to a certain extent. But it was just this really intricately governed, complex society, really at the forefront of the world at that time, and
massive.
perennial enemy of the Romans. The Romans could never defeat them. They never managed it. The Romans would send, army after army. They were always at war with these guys, always trying to defeat them, and they never managed it. And it's an interesting one because they sort of combined a lot of things coming down from the steppe, because they're on the edge of the steppe, really. The vast sea of grass, which produced the best horse archers in the world. So the Sasanians were good at utilising what the steppe cavalry had to offer, and they were very good at using horse archers. They came up with a thing called the cataphracts as well. They were very heavily armoured knights. They kind of where knights come from, really, the cataphracts. And the Eastern Romans used them as well, but they probably originated here with the Sassanids. Another thing that the Sassanids did, which a lot of people have never really heard of, is they built one of the biggest walls that anyone's ever built in history. Let's have a look at how long was it? 100.
Wow, are there remnants of it today?
Yeah, 195 kilometers long, featuring over 30 fortresses. It's surpassed only by the Great Wall of China, and then one in Korea. So it's the third biggest wall in the world, basically. And it's here it is, the Great Wall in Gorgon. So much bigger than Hadrian's Wall.
Wow.
And essentially what they were trying to do was stop cavalry coming down from the steppe into their empire. And they, by and large, managed it. They built this vast series of defences across the north of their empire, basically. But then, unfortunately, they were conquered from the south, and they hadn't quite predicted that one. But as you can see, this was like the very height of their empire.
Yeah, it was absolutely massive, wasn't it? Wow.
Yes, absolutely huge.
Yeah, I believe that's a big reason why the Arab conquests were just able to sort of sweep over Egypt and make a bunch of gains against Rome, is that Rome had just tired itself out and spent itself fighting the Sassanids.
Yes, and the Sassanids had tired themselves out fighting the Romans. So they came along and they basically realised that it's a perfect opportunity. And I always find it interesting as well, because you look at, I was talking about the Himyarite kingdom briefly in Yemen, which became part of the Sassanid Empire for a time. So it really just surrounded Arabia. And the Romans and the Sassanids both used Arabian mercenaries in their armies. So, Muhammad and all of his guys were very aware of what was going on in the outer world, and that's kind of one of the reasons why they came forth and took over the Sassanid Empire and the Roman Empire.
What's the there's that one monument of the Sassanid king with the Roman emperor that paid homage to him or something. Do you know what that is?
You might be talking about the Sassanid emperor, the Sassanid Shah. His name escapes me, but he captured a Roman emperor. Do you know about this? And he's basically got him as captive, and the story goes that he had him as captive for a number of years, and he used him as a footstool.
It's the might be the one. Oh yeah, look at this. Can I send you if I put it in the chat, can you see it?
The public chat.
It's a Reddit.
Studio chat is still eludes us.
Okay. This stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Another interesting place is Ctesiphon, which was the capital of the Sassanid Empire. And it's got this huge arch, which you can still visit today. And this is sort of near Baghdad. It's in the same vicinity as Baghdad, basically. I've got another image of what it looked like in its prime. A nice reconstruction. Very beautiful.
Yeah, that must have been insane to walk through and just look up.
Yeah, and it's like all of the. It's interesting because it looks a little bit. In this depiction, anyway, they've made it look a little bit like when you see mosques, basically, and the sort of the artwork that's on mosques. It makes me think how much of Islamic art was actually inspired by the Sassanids, because a lot of their sort of high culture came from Persia, really, like these Persian epics and things like this massively inspired the Islamic world,
but adopted into Byzantine architecture. Of like you have the dome churches end up becoming mosques, and then that becomes the general structure of a mosque is similar to the Hagia Sophia.
Yes,
but then you strip out all the icons
Chris.
And stuff.
Where's Chris gone? He's dropped out.
Oh no.
Oh.
Is he back? I can't see
I'll try and invite
you
him.
guys on here. Let me see if he's texted me. What did he say? He said my connection went out.
Oh no.
I'll
see if I can. Oh, I'll send him an invite.
His Wi-Fi poop out. Are we the longest live stream so far?
Good question.
3 hours 6 minutes. That's like a proper
close.
History time duration.
Yeah. It's getting close for sure. Longest one would be. Oh, last night was long actually. I did one with Ancient Americas. 3:39.
Wow, what was the premise of that? Did you have like a civilization?
Archaeological cultures. So we basically just looked at. We did this, but we purely did Americas. So it's for those hardcore Americas fans.
Let's see if
I'll just mention a little bit more about the Sassanids. So this is a little bit of Sassanid art. This is one of the Shahs. I think this might be Khusro. Just lovely, isn't it? It's like,
that's impressive.
This is their version of a Roman marble bust, basically. So
I was gonna say, like it looks very. It almost looks like Hellenistic, kind of Romanesque in a way.
Yeah, does a little bit.
Does a little swirls and
They're
stuff.
Very good at working
European.
silver. So they have lots of silver things that they've worked. There's lots of these plates that you get. So like a silver plate, and it'll be covered in just these amazing depictions, really, of the Sassanid, often military, going about their business. Yeah, I think it's a bit unsung. I think there should be more, just interest in the Sassanids, because this massive empire that lasted for, was it 400 years?
Yeah,
very successful.
They suffer from the same thing that the Achaemenid suffer from, where they are thought of as the as important insofar as they're an antagonist to Rome.
They're the baddies,
or Greece.
That's right. That's right.
And it's just
they're not this focal thing, which they should be. They should be the center of the story.
Yeah.
So they're often this peripheral thing.
Yeah, even if you aren't, I guess, lionizing Greece or Rome, and demonizing the Persians, there still is, sort of a lack of focus on it, where it's like, you don't need to cast the Persians as the heroes in your story. You just, it's interesting to study them. So I always said,
humanize them,
Yeah,
because there's
if Joe and I ever do like a Peloponnesian War, the Greco-Persian Wars, I want Persian perspective, sort of, but I also I want to see Persia. I don't want to just be in Athens. I want to see the Persian court, and I want to see what the cities look like, because that's so interesting to me.
Definitely. Yeah. Because certainly, like, I look at the Sassanids and I'm like, oh, what was a Sassanid city like? You know, because it's this really interesting time period. It's before Islam. It's Christianity exists. There are Christians in the Sassanid Empire, but there are also lots of other religions that are a little bit like Christianity. There's Manichaeism, this prophet called Mani, who I think he was martyred in the Sassanid Empire, actually. But he basically has this whole religion going on. Then there's the Zoroastrians.
Yeah.
There's just all these interesting religions that we forget
at the
about.
time?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Pretty long-standing.
Yeah, and obviously, Jewish people, of course, they're always knocking around. But there are just all these other religions as well that are going on that we've mostly forgotten about today.
Yeah, cosmopolitan place.
Well,
that's 10, and that's over
10.
3 hours, which is
also horse armor
fitting for
well.
a history time live stream. I feel like.
Yes. Horse armor is always cool. I always like armoring your horse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you want to do heavy cavalry charging into battle,
it always looks cool.
It looks cool.
And honestly, the more, I feel like this is a rule. If you're going to wear armor, the more it covers of you, the better it looks. So once you get to just the slit over the eyes, or just like 2 eye holes in a full-on face mask, it never doesn't look cool.
This is why I like sort of, helmets from the Vendel period in Sweden, where you can only see the eyes. And,
I was actually thinking the Sassanid helmets
chainmail,
look similar to the Vendel period helmets.
They're very similar. But
the Vendel period helmets were inspired by late Roman helmets.
They were. The Vendel period also had links to kind of like Western Russia, basically. The area that the sort of the Kievan Rus would later expand down into. The Vendel period, they had links with that area, which probably by extension had links going all the way down to the Sassanid area. So maybe there is this sort of cultural link going on. Some of the graves in the Vendel era look a little bit steppe related. They're sort of very
it's interesting
horsey.
That you said that, because there is a for the life of me I can't remember who it was, but there was an academic article that was submitted about how the Nordic countries, some of their burials began to look like steppe burials, and they would have saddle burials where they would bury someone with a bow and a saddle, and they think it's because you would have some of these Germanic cultures would have served as sort of barbarian mercenaries for Rome at some point, and they would have maybe encountered steppe mercenaries and stuff.
And
the Huns were very prolific in basically ensnaring other peoples into their empire and sort of making them fight on their behalf, basically. So maybe some of them got tied up in the.
What's the saga of Atli or something?
Atli, I think.
I know the one that you're talking about. Yeah, it's like potentially about the 5th century AD, but then it's recorded much later.
About Attila and stuff,
Attila, yeah, exactly. And then it's like in the saga of the...
I think it was found on Gotland, the stone, where it's recorded.
Yeah. Atla Kvida of the Poetic Edda. One of the main characters is Atli, who originates from Attila the Hun, and it dates from the 9th century. Found in Sweden, which is insane. Like the Swedes have this cultural memory because they're Germanic people at that point of Attila. And I just kind of think some of the times, like once you get into this Viking era, it's like, look at these like brutal, like raiding warlike people or something. And it's like, well, they have a cultural memory of the Huns. Like this is, they probably learned some of that. If anything, they should have learned cavalry and horse archery, but What are you
And
gonna
then
do?
prior to all this, they did have connections with New Kingdom Egypt, the
Nordic Bronze
Scandinavia.
Age.
Yeah, the Nordic Bronze Age,
absolutely.
And there was beads from King Tut's workshop found in Nordic graves.
Yes. The amber. It's
yeah,
the amber
the
coming
Baltic
down
amber
from the
as
Baltic
well.
down the Amber
Yeah.
Road. I was going to say something. Yeah, I was going to say actually Vikings, when they came to England, they would ride around on horses. They weren't. They were very good at being cavalry. Basically, they were good at riding horses. So I think they did learn a few things from the steppe. Maybe they weren't doing the horse archery thing.
Horse archery is like
But,
horse archery seems like hard for.
Yeah.
It seems like such a big step for so many civilizations, except for like the indigenous people of the Great Plains, where it's just like you jump on it and you're already way better than anybody that you're facing.
Yeah. Usually requires raising a generation from childhood on horseback.
Yes, if you're doing it since
good.
you're a kid, then it's just easier. Generally,
but if you give like a
whatever you do.
23-year-old saying like, "Here's a bow, here's a horse, figure it out," it's gonna be pretty tough.
Yeah,
It's not
you
gonna
know,
work,
if it's your lifestyle. And I was thinking before, like when the Mongols are interacting with Europeans, you know, militiamen or trained knights, you kind of have. Imagine each one is 30 years old, and the Mongol kind of has been training for war for probably 28 years at that point.
Yeah.
And
because it's not just
maybe it's
training.
against 2 or 3 years or 10 years from the European side.
Because it's not just training for war; it's training for hunting. It's training for just getting around, you know, surviving.
And before hunting,
in your
when
landscape.
you're a toddler, if you're a Mongol toddler, they'll strap you onto a sheep or something, and you get used to riding in the saddle, so to speak, before you even learn how to walk or learn how to ride a horse. That's
right, and they were full time. You know, they weren't just doing this stuff part time like a lot of the people they came across. You know, if you're 99% of the time just labouring in your fields, when you go to war, you're not going to be very good at war. Whereas if you're a Mongol, you've been riding around your entire life and you do it all day, every day.
Yeah, and they still do it. When we were in Mongolia for a group trip last year, we were given a guided tour, and I think it was you asked one of the kids there who was like 15, right, Chris?
Yeah.
He asked, how long have you been doing it?
I said 15. And I said, how long have you been leading the guides? He was like, 10 years. And I fully believe him, because I think it was like a family thing. They were like leading these tours, and his little sister, who was probably like 5 or 6, was like helping to get the horses ready and like knew how to like work them or like hit them on the backside so they'd get moving. And I was like, yeah, it's really cool.
Which means if you're doing the tours at 5 years old, you probably at least were riding for a year prior. So probably 3 or 4 years old, he was already riding some sort of pony or horse.
Yeah, I think it was the Huns that it was like written that they would tie in toddlers before they could walk. They'd be tied onto the back of a sheep so they could understand what it's like to ride.
It makes so much sense. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's almost like it equalizes some of the technological disadvantages that you might have if you're just hyper skilled on horseback.
So if the world goes to
Impossible to
crap
catch.
and AI creates an apocalypse and technology devolves, we'll know how to start the next giant empire. We just get a retinue of horses and we start having babies and we raise them to ride the horses.
Yeah, you just got to make sure you've got horses.
Yeah, as long
That's
as
a
we
good
can get some
advantage to
horses.
have. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll get our Chinggis Khan.
Yeah.
All right, that's like 3 hours
That's
and
10.
20 minutes.
There we go. 3 hours, 20 minutes.
That is
Just
Return of the King.
any questions in the chat? Does anybody have any questions they want to ask now?
I feel like it was just comments.
Yeah, I
Somebody
didn't
said
see
they'd
many
pay you like
questions.
$15K to turn your hair into a wig.
Who said that?
Somebody like way back.
That's pretty easy money.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. No, I don't see any questions. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us on, Pete.
We'll have to do this again.
It's a good time.
Yeah, this is great. See you,
find
everyone.
some more forgotten civilizations.
Yeah. All right. Nice one, everybody. Subscribe to History Dose, and see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.